Chapter 141. Nangong. Brother. What are you guys talking about? Little Linger, why can't I understand? Nangongja and Yuri Koyuri began brainstorming each other, but Little Linger, who was standing on the side, suffered. What's going on today? Little Linger finally received a mission to go out of the village, and she thought that she would have a good trip. But she just quarreled with Yuri Koyuri for a while and ridiculed each other a few times. Then, Nangongja suddenly appeared and killed the Jonin under his guidance. After that, Nangongja began to explain the ins and outs to Little Linger. After listening to her brother Nangong's words, her teammates Yuri Koyuri and brother Nangong began to chatter about a lot of things that Little Linger didn't understand. What small family alliance, what cataract family, what root Uchiha. Little Ling Er's head was a little dizzy from hearing this. Her brain couldn't wrap itself around it, so Little Linger had to call her brother Nangong. Looking at Little Linger's face that was about to turn into a mosquito coil, Nangongja suddenly realized that he seemed to be too protective of Little Linger. He clearly persuaded Yabuki to let Sakura go to the ninja school to learn self-defense methods, but now it's his turn to be overprotective of Little Linger. Sure enough, people are just people who know it's easy to do it. Little Linger's innocence and kindness are what Nangongja and many people close to Nangongja lack. Only when he sees the pure and kind Little Linger, can Nangongja be reminded of his own heart. This is the charm of Little Linger, and the most precious part. Nangongja smiled gently and put his hand on Little Linger's head. He gently caressed her, and Xiaoling Er was just like a kitten, smiling leisurely. It's okay, it's just a small trouble. I'll solve it soon, but Little Linger, you'll have to stay with Mashiro-san and Ruru-san in the Lion Clan space for a while. Hearing Nangongja's words, Little Linger's smile suddenly disappeared, and her small mouth flattened, as if she was very unwilling. Little Linger, don't, I've just become a ninja. I just want to carry out a few super missions and surprise my brothers and sisters. But why do I have to go so far so soon? Little Linger also has a childish temper, and her expression can be said to change at will. But Nangongja has long been used to Little Linger's various expressions. After all, they have lived together for a long time. The degree of understanding between them is extremely high. But Big Brother still has very important things to do. Mashiro-san and Ruru-san are both in the Lion Clan space. Big Brother really doesn't have the spare energy to take care of them, so I want to ask Little Linger to help Big Brother. Now that Little Linger is unhappy and doesn't want to help Big Brother, what should I do? The moment Nangongja's words left his mouth, it could be considered to have intimidated Little Linger. Her small mouth was no longer pouting. Instead, her pair of small eyes were rolling around. It was obvious that she was considering Nangongja's words. Good. This is the time to pursue the victory. And there's a talking kitten in the Lion Clan space. Little Linger, don't you want to see it? This sentence can be said to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Little Linger, who was still in a dilemma, instantly became excited and shouted, I want to go. I want to go. Little Linger wants to help Big Brother take care of the two sisters and the talking kitten. Phew. Nangongja let out a heavy breath. It can be said that Little Linger was tricked. So he turned his head to look at Yuri Koyuri standing next to him. Although Yuri Koyuri looks very mature, he is still an 11 or 12-year-old child after all. Things like talking kittens and alternate dimensions were still very fascinating. A pair of bright eyes looked at Nangongja. Nangongja naturally knows that Yuri Koyuri also wants to go to the Lion Clan space. This is not a troublesome matter. Yuri Koyuri thought too much of the kindness of the three generations and Danzo's thinking. Nangongja actually has contact with both of them. Neither of them is easy to deal with. Gentle? Kind? Cruel? Sinister? Both of them are gathered together. After all, Yuri Koyuri is his student. The relationship between the two was quite close, so Nangongja took the opportunity to say, Yuri Koyuri. You also go to the Lion Clan space with Little Linger, right? But, although Yuri Koyuri's analysis has reached the point of indifference, when Nangongja really wants Yuri Koyuri to get out of this matter, Yuri Koyuri's heart inevitably hesitated. Don't worry, Master's matter will be solved by Master. You are just a child, no matter how much you want to do something, you are still lacking in both strength and intellect. Whether it's strength or scheming, you're still lacking. I'm not willing to let you and Ling face such a thing at such a young age. Go to the Lion Clan space with Little Linger to lie low for a while. When the dust settles, I will bring you back. Nangongja spoke with sincerity. He did not hide his intention to protect her at all. Yuri Koyuri also knows that it is best for him and Little Linger to follow Nangongja to the Lion Clan space to lie low for a while. So he nodded and agreed to Nangongja's proposal. So Nangongja inserted the Heaven's Disaster sword into the ground, grabbed the two little girls' hands, and took them through the space-time gap to the Lion Clan space. After all, the environment of the Lion Clan space is somewhat different from the ninja world. The two little girls were also attracted by the environment of the Lion Clan space. Nangongja? You're back so soon? Little Lion Arthur felt the fluctuation of space and knew that Nangongja had returned, so he hurriedly ran to greet Nangongja. Is Mashiro okay? Nangongja did not forget to ask about Mashiro's situation. After all, Mashiro suffered the most serious injury among them. It doesn't matter anymore, Ruru-san has already bandaged Mashiro-san's wound. It's just that Mashiro-san seems to be too tired and has already fallen asleep. Roar-san is still watching Mashiro-san's bed just in case. Little Arthur's mouth was quite smooth, and he explained the matter in a few words. Little Linger and Yuri Koyuri also broke free from the magnificent scenery of the Lion Clan space. Seeing Little Arthur, who was bragging to Nangongja about how much effort he put in when bandaging the wound, the two little girls exclaimed and rushed to Little Arthur. Wow! There really is a talking kitten. Its fur is so smooth. Little Arthur was dumbfounded, but when he regained his senses, he shouted loudly, "Don't worry. This Lionheart King is a lion, and Nangongja, come and save me." Nangongja had long disappeared. It was better to die than to die. Little Arthur, I wish you a safe life under the ravages of the little girls. Chapter 142. Woodleaf Village, Changi Alley. This is an alley that is not often mentioned by people, but it is a long alley in Woodleaf Village that is hard to ignore. This is the place where some of the messengers from big forces and big merchants live in Woodleaf Village. Because these people are not short of money, this is almost the most entertaining street in Woodleaf Village. Countless merchants opened their shops here side by side, one by one. The basic legal industries of Woodleaf Village were quietly distributed here. In an ordinary courtyard in Changi Alley, Nangongja was standing inside at the moment, holding a small and exquisite wine glass. Nangongja obviously changed his appearance. The originally dark long hair like a waterfall has now turned into a black and white bun on his head. His eyebrows were also trimmed, the sharp eyebrows were trimmed slightly, and with some disguise methods, his face became a little abnormal white. Impressively, he has turned into a sick and weak noble son. Some people may ask, obviously ninjas have a very convenient transformation technique. Directly from the body to the hair, and the clothes on the body can be changed. Why did Nangongja use such a primitive method to cover his face? It is very simple, because Nangongja doesn't know how to do it. As a person who cultivates internal force, Nangongja really doesn't know how to use chakra to change his appearance. He can only rely on some of the disguise techniques he learned when performing tasks in various parts of the ninja world to change his appearance. However, this is not without benefits, because the essence of the transformation technique is actually a kind of genjutsu. Relying on the chakra covering the whole body, setting up a layer of genjutsu to cover the body, some powerful and experienced ninjas can quickly see through some of the less detailed transformation jutsu and perceive the energy fluctuations of the ninjutsu. Nangong's genjutsu is the least dangerous way to change his appearance. In the past few days, Nangongja has been staying in Changi Alley, mingling with representatives of various families and merchants. Although most of these people have no strength, they can rely on their weak bodies to mix in the ninja world for so many years. Their knowledge and ability to collect information can't be underestimated. In addition, Nangongja disguised himself as a sick and weak rich son, which made these people lower their vigilance a little. After Nangongja's extravagant spending of money and wind, flour, snow, and moon's ramblings, a few of the relatively famous people in Changi Alley had already started calling Nangongja their brother. These days, although on the surface, Woodleaf Village is as usual. However, there are more people in all important places. Some important messengers got the news that Woodleaf Village has found some ninjas from other villages, so they raised the level of alert. But everyone knows that although Woodleaf Village lost a lot of power in the previous Third Shinobi World War and Nine Tails attack, but in the Third Shinobi World War, each village also lost a lot of power. It's time to rest. No one will start a war so easily. Those merchants and noble messengers don't know where to go, but I know. In the past few days, Danzo and the three generations have reached a tacit understanding. In 1 or 2 days, they will make a move on the Uchiha clan. Humph. Now that the enemy is in the light and I'm in the dark, what should I do to disturb the three generations and the insidious Danzo-sama? Nangongja took a sip of the wine in his small glass. Although his tone was asking, he didn't hesitate at all. Obviously, he already had a plan in his heart. The key is Itachi Uchiha. Nangongja himself has been thinking for a long time. He has been thinking about how Danzo and the three generations will deal with the Uchiha clan. Although the Uchiha clan is not as strong as the Uchiha clan when they first built the village, but over the years, the Uchiha clan has been accumulating their strength, and in each generation, there will be several amazing new talents. Moreover, even if Danzo and the three generations really want to face the Uchiha clan at all costs, they also have to consider the thoughts of the other Woodleaf clans. Originally, when the village was built, everyone agreed to build the village together. In other words, every clan is a shareholder of the Woodleaf joint venture. Senju, Uchiha, and Hyuga are the biggest shareholders. As for the other small families, they were also shareholders. Now, the Woodleaf clan has developed and become one of the most powerful clans in the shinobi world. The power of the Hokage clan has also expanded rapidly. Originally, it was only the power of Senju clan, but now, it has gradually integrated with the power of Sarutobi, Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Shimura, and the Uzumaki clans scattered in the shinobi world. They have also developed the Umbu under Hokage's direct command and Konoha's route. Every small clan began to feel a little uneasy. Am I really one of the owners of the Woodleaf clan now? Don't say that the Woodleaf is my family, we all love her. The strength of the Woodleaf clan is our strength. Such a hypocritical lie. Every clan that has struggled to survive since the Warring States period, there is no one who doesn't get up early without benefits. If the Uchiha clan has really launched a rebellion, then all the small clans naturally have nothing to say, and even send their own forces to help the Hokage clan suppress the Uchiha clan. But Danzo is selfish, he wants to collect the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. How can he allow others to take such a piece of the cake? At this moment it is an irreconcilable contradiction. Once the Uchiha clan is destroyed, the small clans will inevitably think about it. Even a powerful clan like the Uchiha clan was destroyed by the Hokage clan. What ability do they have to protect themselves? When the Uchiha clan is destroyed, it inspires more people to rebel against the Hokage clan's rule. It is really a stupid act. Therefore, the Woodleaf clan must put out a person who is willing to take all the blame and not let people suspect. After thinking about it, Nangongja didn't know how much information he collected. He found that this candidate is impressively the eldest son of the Uchiha clan's head Uchiha Fugaku, Itachi Uchiha. First of all, Itachi Uchiha is the son of the Uchiha clan's head. Naturally, he has the opportunity to discover the Uchiha clan's bad intentions. Second, Itachi Uchiha can be said to be the most upright and righteous person among all the Uchiha ninjas, which gives Itachi Uchiha a reason to sacrifice his own clan for the Woodleaf clan. Third, Itachi Uchiha has a weakness that can't be ignored, and that is, compared to his younger brother Sasuke's doting. When Itachi Uchiha is not on a mission, he spends all his time with his younger brother. Once Danzo and the three generations use Uchiha and Sasuke as a threat, it is very likely that he will become a puppet in the hands of Danzo and the three generations. It is too easy to manipulate. Chapter 143. The night was as dark as ink, leaving only a bright moon hanging in the sky. Itachi Uchiha was squatting on a telephone pole in the Uchiha clan. The moon was floating behind him. For some reason, Itachi's body and the moon were emitting a touch of blood. In other places of the Uchiha clan, root ninjas wearing Umbu uniforms were shuttling through the streets and alleys of the Uchiha clan. From time to time, screams would break the silence. Itachi didn't say anything, he just told Root about the defensive layout of the Uchiha clan and the distribution of each strong Uchiha clan's home. Is my choice right or wrong? Itachi couldn't help but ask himself. Everyone living in the Uchiha clan was Itachi Uchiha's clansman. Every one of them had the same bloodline as Itachi. But because of Itachi Uchiha's decision, they all rushed to the Yellow Spring at this moment. Most of these people who were killed weren't actually ninjas, they were just Uchiha clansmen who lived under the protection of the Uchiha clan. But at this moment, they are going to lose their lives because of some high-level conspiracy that they didn't know about. At this moment, Itachi is not the poor person who will be weather-beaten in the future, he still has a lot of compassion in his heart. But Itachi knows that only by doing this can he protect his brother. Woodleaf people don't know, but Itachi's heart is very clear. As long as Sasuke can grow strong enough, his descendants will be influenced by the powerful Uchiha bloodline and become a new Uchiha clansman with Sharingan. Moreover, regardless of whether the Uchiha's rebellion will succeed or not, it will inevitably cause more families to be separated by life and death. One family crying is better than 1,000 families crying, one person dying is better than 100 people dying. Itachi may have been brainwashed by the three generations and Danzo's words, leading him to make such a decision. This was a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. On the outskirts of the Uchiha clan's land, Danzo was standing on a relatively high ground, watching his subordinates slaughter the Uchiha clan. Every scream represented that Danzo was about to obtain a bloodline that contained the unique bloodline of the Uchiha clan. Danzo's heart was filled with excitement. The legendary Sharingan, except for a part of it, will fall into his hands. Isn't such a thing enough to make Danzo excited? These eyes will be the best help for Danzo to reach the position of Hokage. Oh, your smile is unspeakably disgusting. A strange voice sounded behind Danzo, and a huge pitcher plant slowly floated up from the hard ground. Humph. Just do what you have to do, it's time for those old bastards of the Uchiha to appear. Danzo didn't pay attention to Zetsu's strange voice. For Danzo, these ninjas of the Akatsuki are just sharp blades that can be attracted by money and treasures. Just by paying a small part of the harvest of the Sharingan, he can attract a large number of ninjas with decent strength to help him contain the high-end combat power of the Uchiha clan. It would reduce the consumption of his subordinates and preserve his own strength. Why wouldn't he do it? I don't know what the three generations Hokage, who is called Ninja Hero by the world and has recently been changing his image to become a kind grandfather, will think when he knows that you actually cooperated with us, the organization that once drove the Nine Tails to attack the Woodleaf. Zetsu didn't care that he was being ignored by Danzo, and he was still talking non-stop. But Danzo glanced at him with extreme contempt and said, "You underestimate Yuan Fei too much. He was the one who defeated me and became Woodleaf's three generations Hokage. Do you think you can guess his scheming and charisma? Uchiha is a ticking time bomb for the Woodleaf. Although it is useful, it will harm others and himself. Yuan Fei just didn't want to dirty his hands, so he acquiesced to me borrowing your strength. In the end, Namikaze Watergate is still an unqualified Hokage. Everything is too simple, all enemies and friends can be covered up and betrayed by their own interests. So stupid to go out of the village and look for your Akatsuki and destroy you? If this Namikaze Watergate is a Hokage for 3 to 5 years, I can guarantee that he won't even have the slightest idea of doing such a thing. Namikaze Watergate is just an unqualified ninja. Looking at Danzo, Zetsu was stunned by the shamelessness of such a person. Sure enough, every politician has already buried their moral integrity and bottom line deep in the ground. They don't care about justice or evil, only care about profit or loss. Such a person. Living won't make the world more beautiful, but dying might make the world less noisy. However, a human's life was too short. After the death of a schemer, who knew how many more schemers would emerge with even more sinister intentions? Human, in Zetsu's mind, is such an inferior and meaningless race, they don't have the qualifications to live and enjoy this world. Such a person should be sent back to the furnace as soon as possible. Just when Zetsu was minding his own business, Uchiha's clan land also rose several huge auras. Danzo glanced at Zetsu, then said in a cruel and cold-blooded manner, "It's time for you to show me whether you are worthy of the reward I pay or not." Zetsu looked at Danzo, but didn't speak. Just like when he appeared, he slowly sank into the ground. At the same time, several ninjas wearing black robes with red clouds appeared in the dark night sky, revealing their figures. These ninjas were either in pairs or in groups of 3, they were the backup forces of Uchiha. In other words, the genius ninjas of various eras were separated from each other. Each one of them didn't seem to cherish the strength of an elite jonin, each one of them was fearless of death, fighting with the strength of Uchiha clan. Under such a fearless attack, the strength of the Uchiha clan's shinobi was greatly depleted. After that, a pitcher plant would slowly appear behind them. Their lives had been taken away without a sound. And those Akatsuki members who were covered in cuts and bruises also dragged their wounded bodies to dig out the eyes of the Uchiha clan's ninjas they just killed. This is the deal between Danzo and Akatsuki. As long as Akatsuki kills Uchiha clan's ninjas, then the eyes of these ninjas belong to Akatsuki. Chapter 144. With the cooperation of Root and Akatsuki, the Uchiha clan's strength was quickly eliminated. Soon, whether it was powerful ninjas or ordinary clansmen, they all turned into corpses lying on the ground. Perhaps only the blood that slowly flowed out from the wounds on their bodies and the eye sockets that had been dug out could prove that these people had once lived in this world. Itachi Uchiha's figure disappeared from the pole and appeared behind Danzo. "Stop, it's time for me to make my move." Itachi's eyes were cold, which was what Danzo wanted. Without feelings, he could abandon everything, as long as he followed the orders of his boss, it was enough. Danzo turned his head and looked at Itachi Uchiha's line of sight. Itachi Uchiha's younger brother, Sasuke, was slowly walking toward his home in the Uchiha clan. Because of the previous massacre, the air was filled with the smell of blood. There was no sound in the surroundings, it was empty and silent, like an old tomb with countless tombstones. Sasuke was just a child, but he could still feel the oppressive and heavy atmosphere. Therefore, he subconsciously quickened his pace, wanting to quickly return to his home, the place where he thought was the safest, where his brother and parents were. Itachi just looked at his brother coldly, then his figure flashed, and he already arrived at his home. His father, Uchiha clan's head, Uchiha Fugaku, and his wife, his mother, Uchiha Mikoto, were sitting peacefully in the living room, slowly waiting for his final outcome. When Itachi opened the door, Fugaku's pupils shrank. He guessed countless people who might betray the Uchiha clan and become Woodleaf spy. But he never thought that the person who betrayed the Uchiha was actually his eldest son, Uchiha Itachi, whom he valued the most and gave the most expectations to. "Itachi, I really didn't expect that the person who came to send me and your mother on our last journey would be you." Originally, Uchiha Mikoto was ready to go to hell with her husband and 2 children. For Mikoto, whether it was the human world or hell, as long as she could be with her family, she had nothing to fear. But Itachi's appearance instantly broke Mikoto's mental state. Since Itachi betrayed the Uchiha clan, then doesn't it mean that he can live? What about Sasuke? Would his youngest son be able to live on with him as well? Itachi. Sasuke, Mikoto still couldn't control the impulse in her heart. The desire to let her two children live on was like a clump of wild grass, quickly spreading throughout her mind. Although Itachi didn't directly tell her about Sasuke's, he still gave his mother a reassuring look. Mikoto understood her child, just like she understood herself. Since Itachi's eyes, she didn't say anything more. "Father, you've made the worst decision possible. Your decision is the root cause of the Uchiha clan's destruction." Itachi turned his head and looked at his father. This was the most harsh words that the always humble and polite Itachi said to his father. "Itachi, there are some things that you can't really understand. I won't defend my actions, nor will I deny my mistakes. Winner takes all, this world has always been like this. Now, since you can use my and your mother's life in exchange for yours and Sasuke's life, then go ahead and make your move. I'm sorry. All these years, I've only cared about the identity of the Uchiha family. But I haven't been a qualified father and husband. I hope you can make it up to your mother in hell." Uchiha Fugaku's usual stern and harsh attitude changed, the cold and stiff face in Itachi's mind became soft at this moment. Father, although it was still a bit estranged, Itachi's mood was completely different. It turned out that his father also had such a side to him. At this moment, Sasuke wasn't far from his home. If he wanted to protect his brother, he had to take his parents' lives before he came back. Under the torment, Itachi still raised the sword in his hand and was about to cut his mother. Shwa! The feeling of flesh being cut and warm blood flowing in all directions did not appear. Instead, there was the sound of metal clashing. Just like that, a pitch-black 5-foot-long sword blocked the saber that was about to slash at his mother. "Do you want your parents to live? Do you hate Danzo?" The person who came was Nangongja, who had removed his disguise. When the Uchiha clan was wiped out by Root and Akatsuki, Nangongja was already at the scene. After many observations, Nangongja found that these Root and Akatsuki ninjas always intentionally or unintentionally skipped the Uchiha clan's house when they were slaughtering the Uchiha clan. So, he sneaked into Uchiha Fugaku's house, wanting to see the further development of things. So, when Itachi was about to kill his mother, he stopped him. Mixed with a part of psychic secret technique, Itachi couldn't help but start to think. His parents, don't he want them to live? The answer was naturally impossible, but his father was the leader of the rebellion against Woodleaf, and the head of the Uchiha clan. Even if Itachi wanted to cover up for him, he couldn't do it at all, right? But Itachi still understood in his heart, as long as there was a slight chance for his parents to escape, Itachi would never miss it. As for whether he hated Danzo, it was like a joke. He was the one who had threatened his own younger brother and forced him to his current situation step by step. Itachi's hatred for Danzo is absolute and can't be ignored. I think, I hate him too. Itachi didn't know what was going on with him, but he subconsciously said what was in his heart. I can help you. I can help you save your parents' lives, and I can also help you take revenge on Danzo. In the end, Nangongja still took out his chip. When Itachi heard Nangongja's words, he instantly woke up. In the past few days, Itachi was used by Danzo and 3 generations. Now, Nangongja came to his door, which made Itachi's delicate nerves instantly tense. Chapter 145. Nangongja saw Itachi's attitude clearly. After all, Itachi was just a kid who graduated from the Ninja Academy not long ago. Although he usually looked mature and steady, some things still need time to accumulate slowly. Are you afraid that I will use you? Nangongja directly brought the topic to the light. To be honest, even if I say that I don't want to use you, neither you nor I will believe it. I am indeed using you, but aren't we also using each other? You get benefits, I also get benefits. As long as we understand this, we have a basis for cooperation. Itachi listened to Nangong's words, and he couldn't help but agree. For a long time, Itachi hated using others to gain his own benefits. But recently, everything had started to force Itachi to violate his principles bit by bit. As Nangongja said, although he was used by the 3 generations and Danzo. But didn't he also achieve his own goals? Although it seems that slaughtering the Uchiha clan and saving Uchiha Sasuke is a big loss. But this kind of thing is just like drinking water. Being able to save his brother who might have lost his life in this massacre is already a gain for Itachi. Deal. What are you going to do? Whether it was Uchiha Fugaku or Uchiha Mikoto, they didn't speak at this moment. Instead, they put their fate in the hands of their children, in the hands of Itachi Uchiha. I will give your parents a kind of pill. It can greatly reduce the body's vitality, and make the body fall into a semi-dormant state. In this state, even if they receive a fatal injury, it will last for a long time. You can kill your parents in order to deceive Danzo, but you must find a way to make your parents not lose their eyes, and make sure that they are in good health. In this way, I can secretly take them away and treat them to remove the dormant state. Itachi didn't know if the pills provided by Nangongja were as miraculous as he claimed, but his parents were already doomed. Now that there was such an opportunity to save their lives, both Itachi and Uchiha Fugaku felt that it was worth a try. If that's the case, then let's do it. Sasuke is almost home, and the matter here needs to be solved as soon as possible, otherwise Danzo will be suspicious. Nangongja nodded and took out 2 brown pills the size of a fingertip from his ninja tool bag and placed them in the hands of Uchiha Fugaku and his wife. After taking this pill, you will immediately enter a state of suspended animation. It was as if he had fallen into a deep sleep and could not feel all the sensations in his body. However, this state cannot be maintained for too long, or it will lead to your immediate death. So, Nangongja looked at Itachi and then said, everything needs to be done quickly. Fugaku and his wife, as well as Itachi, nodded, and then Fugaku and his wife each took a pill, and instantly lost all their senses and fell to the ground. All their physical characteristics became extremely weak, and it was impossible to detect them. Let's finish them off, Nangongja said to Itachi Uchiha, and Itachi also raised the Zanpakuto in his hand and slashed his parents without hesitation. The huge wound slowly oozed blood, and the strange thing was that it was such a big wound, but there was very little blood flowing out. Sui Ran looked very decisive, and there was no emotional fluctuation at all. However, the original pair of dark eyes had turned red at this moment. It was the Uchiha clan's Kekkei Genkai, Sharingan. The tomo in the eyes was spinning quickly, and the 3 tomo and the pupil were about to connect into a line. Itachi's heart was full of memories of himself and his parents. It was obviously such an ordinary memory, but at this moment, it became so clear, so full of happiness. But now, there was nothing. Itachi's heart was filled with extraordinary hatred. The hatred for his father was because he wanted to fight for power and profit, and pushed his family into the abyss of destruction. The hatred for Danzo was because he coveted the Uchiha clan's Kekkei Genkai, Sharingan, and forced him to push his family step by step to this point. But the hatred for himself. He could have fought for his family and fought with the root ninjas to defend his family, but he couldn't bear to see more people die, so he chose to betray his family. Hatred. He hated the world for being unfair, and he hated himself for being weak. If he could be stronger, he would be able to face all threats. Then how could he make such a choice? His parents lying on the ground, and the blood slowly flowing out of their wounds was like a sharp knife stabbing his head. Although he took the pill given by Nangongja, Itachi didn't know whether his parents could wake up smoothly, but under the influence of his slightly extreme mood, his heart was filled with all kinds of pessimistic thoughts. 2 tears of blood slowly flowed from Itachi's eyes, and the 3 tomo in the Sharingan had now turned into a huge triangular windmill. This is the evolved form of the Uchiha clan's Sharingan, Mangekyo Sharingan. Then I'll leave the rest to you. Nangongja walked to Itachi's side and patted his shoulder with his hand. At this moment, Itachi's temperament has changed greatly, the original sadness and anger at this moment quietly disappeared. Only extreme indifference and coldness were left, as if Itachi had frozen his heart and soul. Don't worry, since I made a deal with you, I will naturally do it. You just need to be ready to accept my parents. Itachi's tone was a bit cold, but he still didn't get confused by all kinds of emotions, and his words were still somewhat organized. Oni-san. Father Sama. Mom. Little Sasuke's shout came from outside the door, and glanced at Nangongja. Nangongja immediately hid his figure. Brother. Brother, Sasuke opened his door, and although he still saw his brother and parents, it wasn't what he wanted to see. At this moment, Itachi was holding a bleeding Zanpakuto, and the scarlet blood made the Zanpakuto's blade even colder. His father and mother both had a hideous wound on their chests. All of this was telling a cruel story to Sasuke. Chapter 146. Brother Itachi. Sasuke wanted to say more to ask his brother, but all the words in his heart couldn't jump out of his mouth at this moment. He could only call his brother's name, hoping that his brother could give him an answer different from what he guessed. Sasuke. Let me test your tolerance, okay? Let me see if you are a qualified successor of the Uchiha clan. Itachi looked at Sasuke, and the words coming out of his mouth were exceptionally stiff and unapproachable. Brother, what are you talking about? What tolerance? What qualified successor? I don't understand. Did someone break into our house? Did you pick up this bloody sword in your hand to fight against the intruder? Itachi's words were completely incomprehensible to the young Sasuke. Little Sasuke could only use his limited imagination to fabricate a reasonable explanation for the person standing in front of him, who was suspected of killing his parents. Sasuke, don't you understand? I killed father and mother with my own hands for my own sake. All of this is to test my tolerance, to awaken the most powerful force belonging to the Uchiha clan. Itachi looked at Sasuke, and his dark eyes instantly turned into blood-red Sharingan. The most powerful force? Sasuke looked at the Sharingan in Itachi's eyes, which symbolized the highest glory of his clan, and couldn't help but repeat the words his brother just mentioned. Itachi's Sharingan, which originally had 3 tomo, began to rotate rapidly. Slowly, the tomo and the pupil in the middle of the eye connected together, turning into a strange triangular pinwheel-shaped icon that slowly rotated in Itachi's eye sockets. Yes, this is the evolved form of our Uchiha clan's Sharingan, Mangekyo Sharingan. Only the members of the Uchiha clan who truly have the power of transcendent being can have it. The path I chose was to kill my parents, and all the clansmen living outside. Brother, what are you doing? Parents, all the clansmen. How could it be? How could it be brother who killed them? Sasuke couldn't help but think of the faint fishy smell in the air when he entered the Uchiha land, and the overly quiet environment. If everything Itachi said was true, then his brother had killed thousands of innocent people for such an illusory goal of tolerance? Did that include his parents? I don't believe it. I will never believe that my brother would do such a thing. Sasuke shook his head vigorously. Maybe this was the only way to make himself more convinced of his own ideas. Itachi also saw that it was impossible to persuade his brother with words alone, so he looked directly at his brother with a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. Is that so? Then I'll let you see with your own eyes. Tsukuyomi. Sasuke fell into a black space at this moment, and the only ray of light was a bloody moon suspended in the sky. There were even 3 tomo Sharingan marks on the moon. Itachi stood in front of Sasuke with his back facing him. Brother, Sasuke wanted to open his mouth and call his brother's name, but he couldn't make a sound. When he found that he couldn't speak at all, Sasuke quickly ran to Itachi's side and wanted to grab his brother with his hand. But as soon as he reached out, his hand passed through Itachi Uchiha's body. His brother in front of him was just a shadow. Sasuke watched helplessly as his brother killed the Uchiha clansmen that he had been living with day and night. Some of these people lived next door to him. Some of them were his childhood playmates. Most of them were Uchiha clansmen whose faces he couldn't remember. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. I don't believe that my brother would do such a thing. That old-fashioned elder brother who had always been so gentle to him, who had always respectfully called his parents Lord Father and Lord Mother, would actually kill his parents and clansmen in exchange for power in order to test his tolerance. Do you see, this is what I did to make myself a qualified Uchiha clansman. Itachi appeared in the dark night sky like a god, with a blood-red full moon suspended behind him. And under Itachi's body, one Itachi figure after another appeared. Although their movements were different, their expressions were also different. But all of them were doing the same thing, killing. Killing without stopping. They were killing people as if they were uprooting weeds in a field. Blood splattered all over the sky, and screams echoed all around. These things were mercilessly accusing Itachi Uchiha's actions, Itachi's family, Uchiha's everything. Itachi's parents were all killed by him. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Sasuke covered his ears and closed his eyes. He wanted to make himself unable to hear those screams and see the blood splattering all over the sky. The cries were like the mournful wails of cuckoos, each of them crying blood. Sasuke had already begun to believe it, even though he tried his best to ignore everything that Itachi wanted to show him. But even though he covered his ears, the sorrowful cries still echoed in his mind. Even though he closed his eyes tightly, the smell of blood still rushed into his nose. Can't you hold on any longer? You still have to witness such a scene over and over again. Even if your mind is overwhelmed, even if you don't want to see these things at all. You still can't faint. You still have to witness these things again. Because, this is the Manjikyu Sharingan. This is the power of Tsukuyomi. My stupid brother. Itachi's voice still echoed, and the coldness contained in it became heavier and heavier. Only by doing this could his weak brother grow up to be able to face anyone's threat, to face any form of fear. To revive the Uchiha clan once again. Even if he couldn't revive the Uchiha clan, at least, he could survive. In the end, Sasuke fainted. The repeated mental stimulation caused Sasuke to fall to the ground the moment he left Tsukuyomi. As for Sasuke's eyes, they had unknowingly turned into a one-tomo Sharingan floating in them. A bloody tear flowed down Itachi's face. Looking at his brother, Itachi's eyes were filled with sadness and relief. For his brother, he was sad that he had to live alone from now on. For his brother, he was gratified that he could live from now on. Chapter 147. Holding his brother, Itachi walked out of his house step by step. Itachi couldn't help but look back at the place where he grew up. This is the place where he spent most of his time. But it's also the place where he will never be able to return to in his life. Itachi guessed in his heart that maybe he will never set foot in this area in his life. After all, whether it's the things that he cherished or those that accompanied him growing up, they were all destroyed by him. His steps were still firm. Everything he did in the future would be so that his younger brother could take charge and survive on his own. Even if the premise is that his brother will hate him and only want to get rid of him, it's fine. Everything is done, Itachi said to Danzo, who was standing opposite him. Very good, from now on, you will be the S-class ninja who betrayed Woodleaf after destroying the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha. Woodleaf will mobilize all forces to capture you. Danzo looked at Itachi and coldly made a judgment for him. At the same time, several root ninjas walked to the opposite side of Itachi and reached out to take Sasuke, who was in Itachi's arms. Remember your promise to me, let Sasuke live a healthy and safe life. Itachi didn't immediately hand over his brother in his hands, but looked at Danzo to confirm the deal between them. That's for sure. I'll definitely do what I've promised you. Danzo didn't even look at Itachi and just said. You can go and confirm the death of my parents, but I want to take their bodies away. You can't violate them. Itachi said, but Danzo wasn't happy. Is this part of our deal? Those are my parents, I will not allow them to have their eyes gouged out like those Uchiha clan members who were slaughtered by you. Leave their bodies intact, I will take them away and bury them properly. This is my last request. Danzo waved his hand, and several root ninjas walked out. Go and confirm the death of Uchiha clan's clan head Uchiha Fugaku and his wife Uchiha Mikoto. Several root ninjas quickly disappeared, but a moment later, one of them walked to Danzo's side and whispered a few words to Danzo. The remaining root ninjas also came out with the bodies of Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Mikoto, but there was an obvious wound on their necks. Their throats were once again cut by the root ninjas to confirm their death. Remember, this is the only and last time you will act on your own initiative. Danzo looked at Itachi to warn him. Itachi didn't say anything. He just took his parents' bodies, and brought them away, one in each hand. Looking at his parents' grave, it was already far away from the wood leaf. Whether it was Uchiha Fugaku or Uchiha Mikoto, there was no tombstone on their graves. It was just two lonely little mounds under such a big tree. Perhaps Itachi chose this place because he didn't want his parents to suffer the cruelty of the wind and rain even after they died. Looking at his parents' grave, Itachi was silent for a long time before leaving. Not long after Itachi left, several root ninjas came out to check the grave again. After confirming that it was indeed Uchiha Fugaku and his wife, they left this place. These root ninjas are really careful. They actually came to check again. Should I say that they are really worthy of being root ninjas? Nangongja also came out from the shadows and confirmed that there were no hidden sentries around. Nangongja began to dig out the bodies of Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Mikoto. Carefully returning the grave to its original state, Nangongja took the bodies of Uchiha Fugaku and his wife to the Lion clan's dimension. Who? Itachi felt an aura following him from behind. After confirming that he was far away from his parents' grave, Itachi called out to the figure that was following him. I hope Nangongja can save my parents? Without giving Itachi more time to think, a huge pitcher plant appeared behind him. Looking at the black cover with red clouds on Zetsu's body, Itachi's eyes were a bit dazed. It seems that you know about us. Zetsu looked at Itachi's reaction and realized that Itachi actually knew about the organization he belonged to. When Nine Tails attacked the village, the Uchiha clan also had a detailed record. After all, whether it's the mysterious person who can arm wrestle with Yondaime Hokage or the 3-tomo Sharingan mark in Nine Tails eye socket, for the Uchiha clan, it's information that must be collected. Itachi didn't intend to lie to Zetsu. After all, a ninja of this level can distinguish whether a person is telling the truth or not. He. I didn't expect our organization to have reached such a prestigious level. Zetsu's words were strange. Obviously he was praising his organization, but there was a different kind of joking tone in his voice. Then, everything will be easy. Our organization is an organization that recruits all S-class ninjas. We take in all the ninjas who left the village and give them shelter. At the same time, they will also serve our organization when the organization needs them. Well, a ninja who betrayed the wood leaf and wiped out his own family must need our organization's protection, right? Serve your organization, and you will provide me shelter? Itachi repeated the conditions proposed by Zetsu, and listening to Itachi's retelling, Zetsu nodded and gave an affirmation. How can you prove that you can shelter me? You know, I betrayed the wood leaf. The crimes I have committed are enough for Konoha to issue the highest level of arrest warrant to the shinobi world. How to protect you? Can I? Zetsu didn't have time to speak, another voice sounded. Although Itachi noticed that someone was following him early, it was just a subconscious reaction. When Zetsu came out, Itachi also carefully checked his surroundings again, but he didn't expect that there was someone hiding here. The person who came out had orange hair, and his face was decorated with strange black ornaments. Naturally, the person who came out was also wearing the Akatsuki's signature black cover with red clouds. The most peculiar thing was his eyes. There were circles of ripples distributed in his white eyes. Reincarnation. Eyes, Itachi couldn't help but say such a sentence. Chapter 148. Looking at Pain in front of him, even Itachi couldn't help but be in a trance at the moment. That's the eye of the legendary sage of the Six Paths, known as the ancestor of the shinobi world. In the mythical stories he has read since he was a child, this person's name will never be missing. Originally, Itachi thought that such a person was just a fictional character in the past, but now the eyes representing this mythical character appeared in front of him. Don't ask Itachi if he didn't suspect that this eye was fake, because the moment Pain came out, the majestic momentum and the suppression from the bloodline appeared in Itachi's heart, and it was difficult to dispel. How about it? As the successor of Sage of the Six Paths, do I have enough qualifications to shelter you? Pain's eyes narrowed, like a god looking down at his believers who were prostrating at his feet. It was obviously a question, but it was full of a kind of undeniable majesty. Itachi knew that he had lost the right to veto. As long as he still wants to live, as long as he still wants to watch his brother grow step by step, then he has to crawl at the feet of such a godlike character. But Itachi is not willing. Itachi's pride does not allow him to crawl at the feet of others. Ha! Itachi's mouth made a low roar, and a powerful chakra burst out of his body. In an instant, he broke through Pain's momentum lock. I don't want to give in to anyone anymore. Amaterasu. The triangular pinwheel in Itachi's eyes rotated quickly, and even his eyes seemed to be overwhelmed and began to shed a line of blood tears. Seeing that Itachi seemed to want to resist, Zetsu couldn't stand it anymore. It was him who suggested to pull Itachi into his organization, but now Itachi started to resist without giving him face. Zetsu took a step forward and seemed to be about to attack. But just as Zetsu took the first step, Pain stretched out a hand and stopped him. Humph. It doesn't matter. Since he wants to understand my strength well, then I will give him this opportunity. Only in this way can he really be convinced. Let's work hard for our goals. Even in the face of the attack of Manjikyu Sharingan, the evolved form of Sharingan, Pain still looked calm. It's like a house cat naughtily wants to catch its owner, and the owner is just waiting for a good time to kick it hard to let it know the majesty of the owner. Ignored. Even if he has the Manjikyu Sharingan, this godlike man standing in front of him still looks down on him like this. Itachi didn't lose control of his emotions, but being despised by others, he will be very angry, let alone Itachi who has been regarded as a genius since he was a child. A black flame floated out along Itachi's line of sight, and attacked Pain at an extremely fast speed. God! God! Pain stretched out a hand, but there wasn't the slightest chakra fluctuation. Of pain of pain of pain. Then, heaven and earth seemed to listen to Pain's command. A strong repulsive force appeared out of nowhere. The Amaterasu, which was shapeless to begin with, had taken on the shape of a black flame because it had swallowed everything around it, was repelled by the repulsive force. It landed on a nearby tree and swallowed the tree mercilessly. Are you convinced? Pain asked indifferently, but Itachi didn't say a word, just took out a few kunai. With his proficient kunai throwing technique, he threw them at Pain. It seems that you still don't understand my power, Shinra Tensei. The power just now was activated again, and several kunai were bounced away in an instant. Itachi was surprised, such a heaven-defying skill was actually released so easily. He thought that the reason why Pain was able to bounce his Amaterasu was because he had already made the hand seals of this powerful ninjutsu in advance, but now the situation is simply instant ninjutsu. 10,000. Elephant. God. Guide. Pain stretched out his palm again and aimed at Itachi. Unlike the strong repulsive force just now, this time Pain made a strong gravitational force. Even if Itachi tried his best to break free from the attraction of gravity, standing on the ground was still a drop in the bucket. After a short struggle, Itachi was attracted to it. Pain's palm grabbed Itachi's neck fiercely, and Itachi stared directly at Pain's eyes. "Are you wondering why your genjutsu didn't work?" Itachi was slightly surprised, because what Pain said at the moment was also what he wanted to ask the most. As a ninja, Itachi's strongest is never ninjutsu or taijutsu, but under the blessing of Sharingan, almost no one can resist genjutsu. Just now, Itachi looked directly at Pain's eyes for 2 seconds. Even people with high genjutsu resistance will fall into Itachi's genjutsu at this moment. He saw himself turning into a cluster of crows and flying around. But Pain didn't have any abnormality at all, he was not affected by genjutsu at all. Itachi's heart became fierce, and the triangular pinwheels in his eyes began to spin quickly. A purple flame rose from Itachi's body, and in a moment, it had turned into a huge skeleton dyed with purple chakra flames. The skeleton held a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, and Itachi's height was instantly raised. From a high place, he looked down at Pain, who was standing at the foot of the giant he summoned. Susanoo, the secret of Manjikyu Sharingan that appears after a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan is used to the extreme? Looking at the huge skeleton standing in front of him, Pain muttered softly. Although the voice was very small, it still reached Itachi's ears. This move was imprinted in his mind after he awakened Manjikyu Sharingan. Although he was not proficient, Itachi still used it. Such a thing, Pain, who is not a member of the Uchiha clan, is actually more clear than the Uchiha clan. When he first saw Pain before, there was a faint suppression from the bloodline in his heart. Itachi had some speculations in his heart. There is definitely an unknown relationship between Sharingan and Rinnegan. But at this moment, Itachi didn't have time to think about these things at all. Instead, he manipulated the huge skeleton outside his body, Susanoo, to raise the giant sword in his hand. It slashed fiercely towards Pain. Chapter 149. The huge sword, under the control of Susanoo, slashed towards Pain who was standing at his feet. Itachi could feel that he had hit the target, and the huge force even stirred up the dust in the sky. But Zetsu, who was watching the battle from the side, didn't react at all. He seemed to be very confident in the leader of his organization. Under such an attack, as the leader of his organization, he would never fail. And the facts seemed to be on Zetsu's side. After the smoke and dust settled, everything was displayed in front of everyone. Pain actually relied on his own pair of palms to directly take the full force of Susanoo's attack. And even the ground under his feet was not affected in the slightest. The 1 meter square ground under his feet stood alone on the ground like a pillar, lifting Pain high like a god. Other than that, the height of the ground dropped by at least a meter. In fact, it was not appropriate to say that Pain took the attack of Susanoo with his own hands, because the giant sword in Susanoo's hand was about 5 or 6 centimeters away from Pain's palm. The huge repulsive force and the power of the giant sword of Susanoo offset each other, confronting each other like this. Impossible. This was the first sentence after the real battle between Itachi and Pain began, and the tone of their words was full of disbelief. No. All of this is real. Because I have the eyes of God. I was sent to the world by God to reshape everything and bring peace to the world. When Pain said this sentence, his mood was no longer as indifferent as before. There was a sense of madness in his eyes, which was a kind of fanatical belief in himself. If such a person was pulled to other places, he would definitely be scolded as mentally ill, and then be sent to the local mental hospital for treatment. But Itachi couldn't refute this person's words at all. Whether it was this person's eyes or this person's power, it was just as Pain said. He was God. A god who was really different from ordinary human beings. Looking at Itachi's eyes, Pain knew that the proud man in front of him had actually been conquered by him. The corner of his mouth pulled out a stiff smile, which made Zetsu, who was standing next to him, stunned. This Pain actually smiled? Even though it was still so stiff, it was a genuine smile on his face. It was incredible. It's time to end this. Pain looked at the giant sword in front of him and seemed to be a little impatient. Thus, he gently raised his hand, as if he was holding up a ball of cotton, and raised the huge sword high into the air. Shinra Tensei. The huge repulsive force struck again, overturning Susanoo and its sword to the ground. Just now, Pain still didn't use his strongest power. This was Itachi's last thought before he fainted. After that, he fell into a deep coma. Zu ran to Pain's side and hugged Itachi in his arms. Pain, who was next to him, also disappeared in a few flashes. Only Zu, who was standing in the same place, looked at Itachi in her arms. After that, she brought Itachi into the ground and disappeared. Only the huge pit on the ground and the giant tree that was still burning with black fire proved that there was an unusually fierce battle here just now, but the Woodleaf Barrier class ninjas had to go so far to seal such an unknown black fire. Not far from the battlefield, two figures were hiding in a giant tree made of paper. Nagato stood in a strange container, his whole body was skinny, and there were several terrible black iron rods on his back. Conan, who had purple hair with a white paper flower on it, looked at Nagato in front of her and couldn't help but ask, although this Itachi does have some potential, recruiting him will also improve the strength of our organization. But... Nagato, why are you so happy? Yes, at this moment, Nagato's face was actually a little bit smiling. Unlike the stiff smile on Pain's face, Nagato had a very natural smile at this moment. If you ignore his dry hair and thin face, presumably this smile will be a little warmer, right? Conan. This Uchiha clansman unconsciously reminds me of Yahiko. The same strong, the same sacrificial spirit. In fact, it's not so important whether I can recruit him into our organization or not. It's just that his image in my heart gradually overlaps with Yahiko's, as long as he's in our organization. I will always think of Yahiko, the original intention of our Akatsuki, and my current goal. When Conan heard Yahiko's name, there was a deep sadness in her eyes. Whether it was Yahiko's body that was made into Pain Tendo's body, or Itachi, who was now recruited, Nagato gave her a warning. She didn't forget her original intention, and with Yahiko's dream, she wanted to turn this world into the dream of the three of them when they were children, a world without worries, without disputes, without war. However, Conan still faintly asked herself in her heart. Even if Nagato has the Rinnegan, even if he has the help of the Uchiha Madara, can they really create such an illusory and unreal world? Conan didn't have the answer in her heart, but she still firmly looked at Nagato next to her. In any case, she has lost Yahiko, and she absolutely can't lose Nagato. Since Nagato has decided to carry out such a plan, then all she can do is try her best to help him. Even if she can't, she must try her best to protect him and keep him away from danger. Conan has never believed in this whimsical plan, nor did she believe in the masked man who has been hiding himself. Conan just wanted to protect Nagato, that's all. She had no other demands. When Itachi opened his eyes again, he found himself in a crypt. The surroundings were a little dark, with only a few oil lamps hanging on the walls, providing a little bit of light to the crypt. A figure stood in front of him, holding a robe, a ring, and a hat decorated with several small bells that covered his entire face. A head of orange hair and eyes with circles of ripples was enough to prove who the person standing in front of him was. It was the leader of the Akatsuki, Pain, who he couldn't do anything to. Chapter 150. There was no need for the author to retell what happened later. Facing Pain, who had no power to resist. Itachi could only silently accept the Akatsuki uniform. On the other side, in the Lion Clan's different dimension, Nangongja stood in the hut originally built by Mashiro, looking at the Uchiha Fugaku couple lying quietly on the bed. His face was a little worried. Because in the beginning, although Itachi's attack was heavy, there was still room to save them. When Nangongja took out the bodies of the Uchiha couple from the simple grave built by Itachi, he also found the wound that was later added by the root ninja. This wound was a bit tricky. Nangongja didn't dare to guarantee that his sister could save these two people. Finally, Nangong-ro stopped treating the Uchiha couple. "How is it?" Nangongja immediately asked anxiously. "The situation is not optimistic." Nangong-ro's words made Nangongja's heart sink. This is not a good omen. But fortunately, they took the turtle-breathing pill in advance, and Big Brother, you brought them here. I have now stitched up their wounds, but they can't leave the Lion Clan's different dimension for a long time. After all, the natural energy in the air of the ninja world is too thin compared to the Lion Clan's different dimension, and all kinds of bacteria may cause secondary damage to their bodies. So they need to recuperate for a while. Nangongja knew that his goal has actually been achieved. As long as the lives of the Uchiha couple are saved, he can stand on the same side as Itachi Uchiha. All kinds of plans in the future will be possible to be carried out. How long will it take for them to wake up? Nangongja asked his sister. This is not certain, because strictly speaking, they are still in a critical period. If it was an ordinary person, they would have already become vegetative, but considering the physical advantage of the ninja and the innate spiritual power of the Uchiha clan, they should wake up in 3 to 5 days. Nangong-ro made a comprehensive analysis of the physical condition of the Uchiha couple and made a judgment. Well, let's wait for them to wake up and talk about other things. In fact, time passed so quickly, but in just 5 days, the Uchiha couple has already woken up. At this moment, the two can't eat normal food, so they can only eat a little liquid food. But they can still talk to each other. What's the situation of the Uchiha family now? After Uchiha Fugaku woke up, he began to ask Nangongja the question he was most concerned. Strictly speaking, the Uchiha clan doesn't exist anymore. In the knowledge of the ninja world, now the Uchiha clan is only left with Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke. Now, counting you and Uchiha Yuri Koyuri who I brought here, the Uchiha clan should be only 5 people left. As for those who were not in the Uchiha base during the night of the extermination, I believe that Danzo will not let them go. Nangongja didn't sympathize with Uchiha Fugaku's mood so gently, but he said so cruelly to Fugaku. In fact, Fugaku didn't have much expectation that Uchiha could survive, but when Nangongja directly told him the reality, it was inevitable that his heart sank, and his mood was a little depressed. Sigh. Well. It's good that Sasuke and Itachi can survive. Mikoto seemed to see that her husband was actually very uncomfortable, so she stretched out her hand and grabbed her husband's hand. Look at it, at least our children are still alive. And there is a little girl who was lucky enough to escape such a dangerous situation, right? Fugaku suddenly said to Nangongja, can you also call the little girl named Yuri Koyuri? Although Yuri Koyuri originally belonged to the conservative faction in the Uchiha clan, these insignificant factions have long been meaningless. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku called Yuri Koyuri, nothing more than to tell Yuri Koyuri some secrets about the Uchiha clan. Whether it was Nangongja or Nangong-ro, they have already seen through this. So after the two called Yuri Koyuri, they didn't go in, but chatted outside. Oni-san, this time you and Danzo fell out. In fact, it can be regarded as a disguised form of falling out with Woodleaf. Even if you really go back to Woodleaf, presumably the estrangement between you two will be extremely deep. Oni-san, what are you going to do? In fact, Nangong-ro has been thinking about this problem since her brother brought Uchiha Fugaku and his wife to the Lion clan's different space, but because of Uchiha Fugaku and his wife's injuries, she didn't have time to ask her brother these questions. Now, she finally took advantage of the fact that Uchiha Fugaku was going to talk to Yuri Koyuri, so she asked the question that had been in her heart for a long time. In fact, it's not as serious as you think. It's true that this time I fell out with Woodleaf, but it doesn't mean that I fell out with 3 generations Hokage and a group of ninjas I met in Woodleaf. Woodleaf seems very open, but in fact, they are still vigilant in the face of people like me who have the strength to join Woodleaf. Since I began to stand out on the battlefield, I don't know how many people began to secretly send a lot of people to watch us. So, from the beginning, our relationship with Woodleaf was not as close as you think. If I have to use words to describe it, I'm more like a mercenary recruited by Woodleaf. Working for Woodleaf, Woodleaf provides me with a certain amount of protection. Danzo and 3 generations have always been at odds. This time because of various interests, they cooperated to deal with the Uchiha clan. This time, although I completely stood on the opposite side of Danzo, but in the battle between the 2 sides, didn't I firmly push myself to the side of 3 generations? Nangongja said a lot, but in the end, what he meant was that he only fell out with Danzo on the surface, but he was still in an ambiguous state with 3 generations. So Woodleaf will not be in a hostile state with him at all. Then, brother, do you still want to go back to Woodleaf? As soon as the words came out, Nangong-ro felt that she asked a stupid question. Because although Nangongja and Woodleaf did not completely go against each other, but in this situation, if he still went back, wouldn't he be in a hurry to be looked down upon? Nangongja did not answer his sister's question, but looked down at the god's retribution sword in his hand. The corner of his mouth slightly drooped, as if he had made a decision. Chapter 151. Nangongja opened a scroll in his hand and a crow psychic beast appeared on his shoulder. Nangongja put his mouth close to the crow and whispered a few words. Then, he reached out his hand and patted the crow's head. The crow then flew off from Nangongja's shoulder and went to find its master. That's right. At this moment, Nangongja had already left the Lion Clan space. He also sent the information about Itachi Uchiha's parents to Itachi. It could be said that he had completed a small task that he had to complete. Then, Nangongja looked at his surroundings and a slight bitter smile appeared on his face. Why is there no other place besides the forest around me? Nangongja still felt that he wouldn't be able to see anything clearly if he stood on the ground. Thus, he gathered his internal force and attached it to the soles of his feet, allowing him to quickly run to the top of the tallest tree around him. The wind slightly blew the treetops, causing Nangongja to slightly sway along with the treetops. This place was so desolate that it was a bit scary. He could only faintly see a wisp of smoke slowly floating up from the end of the sky. It was true. This place was not close to Nangongja. Even with Nangongja's leg strength, he estimated that he would need to run at full speed for nearly 10 minutes to reach this place. Senior banishment, why didn't he just tell me where I was? Yet, he only gave me such a vague location, and then pretentiously told me, the sword will guide you in the right direction. At that time, I was too embarrassed to tell Senior Leisha about it. It was really too different from his style. Woodleaf finally understood the Uchiha matter. Nangongja's mood also slightly relaxed. He actually had the energy to joke about the genius who had taught him before, banishment. However, Nangongja still very obediently pulled out the tribulation sword in his hand from its scabbard and used the tip of the sword to sweep the surroundings. He very seriously felt the fluctuations from the tribulation sword. This is the place. Nangongja's eyes, which were originally tightly shut, suddenly opened and looked in a certain direction. It was the place where the smoke was rising from. Nangongja's ankle shook and released a wave of energy. Nangongja was like a huge bird flying across the sky. Soon, Nangongja arrived at the place where the smoke was rising. To Nangongja's surprise, this place was not like what Nangongja had imagined. It was not a small settlement with only a few families. Instead, it had a large population. Nangongja took 2 steps forward and sat down in a very simple-looking straw hut. "Sir, may I know what you would like to order?" Soon, a waiter dressed as a waiter walked to Nangongja's side. Although he was greeting him, there was a bit of awkwardness in his voice. It was obvious that this small town did not have many outsiders, so the waiter and Nangongja had some difficulty talking to each other. "I'm also new here, so I'm not too familiar with what you have. Why don't you just give me your best wine and some side dishes?" Nangongja said very casually. Ever since he had cultivated with the banishment for a period of time, Nangongja had become more and more addicted to the temptation of wine. Since he had come to a new place, he naturally had to try some of the local wine. Although this was a small town, wasn't it very normal to have good wine in the alleys? Nangongja put the Heaven's Tribulation sword in his hand on the table. The sound made the waiter slightly look sideways. The waiter was originally worried that his table would be damaged by Nangongja, but after seeing the Heaven's Tribulation sword, he couldn't help but stare. Seeing that the waiter was in a daze in front of him, Nangongja coughed slightly, pulling the waiter's thoughts back to reality. Sorry, almost no one here practices martial arts. So when you put the sword on the table, I couldn't help but look at it a few more times." The waiter tried hard to explain his behavior, and Nangongja also looked at the waiter deeply, then laughed and said, "It doesn't matter, the weapon I use is rarely used in the entire ninja world. It doesn't matter if you look at it a few more times. Go, bring my wine and side dishes first." The waiter nodded, then took a few steps back and walked to the side of the shopkeeper who looked a little old standing next to the counter. He put his mouth close to the shopkeeper's ear and whispered a few words. The shopkeeper also opened his eyes. After glancing at Nangongja, he waved his hand and seemed to agree with the waiter's proposal. This wine shop is not simple. Nangongja already had some thoughts in his mind. Since it was a place that Banishment Senpai told him, it naturally wouldn't be that simple. So Nangongja paid more attention to everything around him. The waiter quickly put Nangongja's side dishes on the table. It was very simple, just a dish of stir-fried vegetables and a plate of fried peanuts. But Nangongja's wine took a long time to be brought over by the waiter. There was some soil on the wine jar, and the red paper was wrapped in the soil. This was obviously a jar of aged wine that had been stored in the cellar for a long time. Nangongja looked at the wine jar, and the faint trace of unhappiness in his heart was thrown away. "Waiter, this wine is..." Drinking wine was never as simple as drinking it, and Nangongja knew that it was like this. Generally speaking, when he saw a wine that he had never seen before, Nangongja would ask the seller to briefly introduce the brewing process and storage method. Anyway, it was just a brief introduction, and no one would hide anything. At this moment, Nangongja's habit was acting up. "Sir, if you ask me when and how this wine was brewed, I really can't answer at all. Because since I was young, this wine jar has been buried in the backyard of our wine shop. I vaguely heard the shopkeeper say that there was no one who could brew this kind of wine. Drinking a jar means there is one less jar. So this wine jar has always been buried. Just now, I told the shopkeeper that you wanted to drink wine, and the shopkeeper looked at you and felt that you were also a wine lover. That's why he asked me to take out this jar of wine." As the waiter spoke, the shopkeeper had already arrived beside Nangongja. He glanced at the Heaven's Calamity sword that Nangongja had placed on the table, and quickly looked away. He said to Nangongja, "Don't listen to this nonsense. Don't listen to this brat's nonsense. What kind of eyes do I have to be able to tell whether a person likes wine or not? It's just that I suddenly thought of the taste of this wine, and I couldn't help but crave it. But this kid is a drunkard, so I wanted to drink a few cups with you." Chapter 152. Hearing the shopkeeper's words, the waiter shut his mouth and could not help but smile. He stood to the side and gently poked the red paper that sealed the wine. A strong wine aroma spread out from the wine jar. After Nangongja smelled the wine aroma, he raised his eyebrows slightly. However, he did not say anything. He just quietly watched the waiter put the wine in the wine jar into a slightly rough white porcelain jug using a bamboo container. The shopkeeper also stood up and took out a pair of wine glasses made of jasper from the shabby counter. It was obviously a shabby wine shop, but there was a pair of expensive wine glasses. It was really strange. When I drink ordinary wine, I usually don't bear to take out this pair of ancestral jasper glasses. However, today's wine must be served with a jasper glass to truly appreciate its color and taste. The shopkeeper took the 2 jasper glasses and walked to the small table where Nangongzhe was sitting. One glass was placed in front of Nangongzhe, and the other glass was placed in front of him. Nangongzhe picked up the glass and gently rubbed it with his hand. The wonderful touch of the jasper and the slightly cold feeling passed through his fingertips to Nangongzhe's heart. Although this pair of glasses had been kept by the shopkeeper, they were usually not used. However, it was obvious that the shopkeeper would take them out from time to carefully maintain them. It was enough to show the shopkeeper's love for them. The waiter held the white porcelain jug and stood beside Nangongzhe. Nangongzhe also understood and put the glass in his hand on the table. Perhaps the white porcelain jug had been heated before. The wine that was poured out emitted wisps of smoke in the slightly cold air. After the wine was heated, the aroma of the wine was even more obvious. Young friend. It's rare for wine lovers to gather together. Why don't we have a drink together? The shopkeeper raised his glass and said to Nangongzhe. All right. In this ninja world, most people like the tasteless sake. Although sake also had its own taste, I liked this kind of aged wine. It wasn't because of its rich taste. It's just because it suits me the most. Nangongzhe took his blanket and gently touched the blanket in the shopkeeper's hand. The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled. Then, they slowly took a sip from the wine glass in their hands. The cold feeling of the jasper and the warm feeling of the wine merged into one, giving a different kind of experience. This wine. Actually, Nangongzhe had drunk it before. He had even drunk it quite a few times, but Nangongzhe did not show it. With good wine in front of them, they naturally had to drink before talking about other things. The 2 of them had simple dishes to go with the wine and started to drink together. Gradually, it seemed that the alcohol was taking effect. The shopkeeper, who looked a little old, had a dazed look in his eyes as he stroked his beard that almost reached his chest. When the ancients drank, they were often full of literary interest. From time to time, they would sing and write lyrics. This old man's talent is not high, so naturally, I can't write a lot of beautiful poems like the ancients. But I have heard a few words, which can be regarded as singing the mind of the people who drink. If the guest doesn't mind, this old man will also show his incompetence. Nangongzhe naturally wouldn't stop him, so he nodded and motioned the shopkeeper to sing. Ha ha ha. Then this old man will show his incompetence. Don't you see, the water of the yellow river comes from the sky, rushing to the sea and never returning. Don't you see, the bright mirror of the hall is sad, white hair in the morning is like black hair in the evening. The more the shopkeeper sang, the more passionate he became. His voice, which was a little hoarse, was now more vigorous and tragic. Nangongzhe was also affected by the shopkeeper's singing. He took the bamboo chopsticks in his hand and tapped the jasper cup in his hand. Whether it was the human voice or the tapping sound, it formed an indescribable harmony. As the feelings of the 2 became more and more agitated, an invisible force began to spread out uncontrollably. Even the shabby wine shed was affected by the 2 of them. Some of the dust in the corners that couldn't be cleaned were stirred up by the force and scattered down. However, the force was maintained in the wine shop and didn't spread out at all. The waiter, who was standing by the side and adding wine for the 2 of them, wasn't frightened by such a strange scene at all. On the contrary, he was still very calm. With a smile, he held the wine pot and looked at the 2 people who were singing in front of him. This song wasn't considered long. Even if the 2 of them were singing softly and at a slower speed, there was still a time when it ended. Who will be exchanged for good wine, and with you, we will quell the worries of eternity. When the shopkeeper sang the last line, his voice had clearly stopped, but his voice still echoed in the tavern. The word worries seemed to contain an unusual force. It echoed for a long time and didn't dissipate. Wine, this is indeed good wine. Nan Gongja raised the cup that still had a little bit of wine in it and drank it all in one gulp. Then, he looked at the shopkeeper and chuckled, this person is also a wonderful person. That's right. As Nan Gongja expected, the shopkeeper wasn't simple at all. When the shopkeeper started to sing, Nan Gongja felt that the shopkeeper began to emit a force that was different from chakra. This force was the inner strength that Nan Gongja was very familiar with. Therefore, Nan Gongja cooperated with the shopkeeper and began to inject his inner strength into the bamboo chopsticks in his hand. While he was tapping the wine cup, Nan Gongja was also using the tapping sound to test the shopkeeper. The strength of the two of them began to increase, and their strength began to resonate with each other. In the beginning, the two of them were still able to control it and restrain the resonance. However, in the end, the strength became stronger and stronger. The two of them could only restrain a part of their strength and watch as the excess energy dissipated and began to affect the wine shop. However, there seemed to be a barrier around the wine shop that could block the inner strength. Therefore, the strength of the two of them continued to reverberate in this small area of the wine shop. The shopkeeper wasn't an ordinary person, and so was the waiter. If an ordinary person received the impact of the resonance formed by the strength of the shopkeeper and Nan Gongja, they would definitely suffer some internal injuries. If their body was better, they would just not vomit blood on the spot. However, the waiter still acted naturally during this period. From time to time, he would add wine to the cups in Nan Gongja and the shopkeeper's hands. He seemed excessively normal. Ha ha ha. This wine, I'm sure you've already recognized it, right? If you can't recognize it, you can't be considered the successor of that existence. The shopkeeper looked at Nan Gongja and placed the wine cup in his hand in front of his nose. He sniffed lightly and asked Nan Gongja. Chapter 153. Nan Gongja didn't pay attention to what the shopkeeper said. He just put the wine cup to his mouth and drank the remaining wine in the cup. He took the Heaven's Disaster Sword that he had just put on the table, stood up, and held the Heaven's Disaster Sword horizontally in front of his chest. He said to the shopkeeper and the waiter, "Here is the Heaven's Disaster Sword, everyone of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Greet the head." That's right, the shopkeeper and the waiter were actually the backup left by the banishment for Nan Gongja. They belonged to the banishment's faction, the Blood Cloth Pavilion. The ultimate purpose of Nan Gongja coming here was to conquer this organization. The old wine that the shopkeeper took out for Nan Gongja was the wine in the green jade gourd left by the banishment for Nan Gongja. It was also the favorite wine of the banishment, the drunken immortal wine. When the shopkeeper and the waiter saw Nan Gongja's posture, they knelt on the ground without saying a word. They said respectfully, "Greetings, Supreme Sword." Supreme Sword? It seems that the two of you don't recognize my strength? You only worship the sword, but not the person? Nan Gongja smiled slightly, although there was some tension in his heart. But he didn't immediately attack, he just said with a somewhat unfriendly tone. In fact, Nan Gongja knew that even if he really came here with the Heaven's Disaster Sword, they wouldn't immediately kneel. They wouldn't immediately bow their heads and kowtow to him. Instead, they offered their loyalty without hesitation. The Blood Cloth Pavilion was actually a kind of force that was close to being hidden from the world. Unless it was a real threat to their survival, they wouldn't appear in the world. This was also the reason why there was no news about the Blood Cloth Pavilion in the ninja world. Guest, you must be joking. Although our Blood Cloth Pavilion is not a tyrannical force in the ninja world. However, we can't just directly worship a person who wields the Heavenly Tribulation Sword as our head disciple. If your excellency can be recognized, then it is only right and proper for you to be the head. However, if your excellency is unable to obtain recognition, then we will naturally provide your excellency with some help when your excellency needs it. The person who spoke was naturally the shopkeeper who was happily drinking with Nan Gongzhe just now. Recognition? Nan Gongzhe repeated the important words that the shopkeeper mentioned. The Blood Cloak Pavilion is a faction founded by a legendary inner force cultivator, the Banishment of Banishment. After the death of the Banishment ancestor, the Blood Cloak Pavilion has always been empty. The altar masters of the subordinate 5-element altars would discuss and decide the matters of the Blood-clad Pavilion. Since you want to sit at the head of the table, the Heavenly Tribulation Sword is naturally an important factor. But Your Excellency still needs the approval of the 5 Elemental Sanctum's altar masters, right? The shopkeeper smiled and said to Nan Gongzhe. Then I wonder which altar master of the 5 element altars is the shopkeeper? Although Nan Gongzhe can't be said to be standing at the top of the ninja world, he can be regarded as one of the top few people in the ninja world. The strength of a Kage-level ninja is not just for show. When the shopkeeper and Nan Gongzhe were drinking, Nan Gongzhe had already sensed the shopkeeper's specific strength. At the very least, the shopkeeper was comparable to an elite jonin in the ninja world, and if an inner force cultivator mastered a decent martial art, they could be comparable to a Kage-level ninja. A person with this kind of strength would be an extremely powerful high-end force in any force. Thank you for your praise. This old man is now the altar master of the Blood Cloak Pavilion's Blue Wood altar. Those of us who have reached the altar master level have abandoned our original names according to the rules. The name of the altar is my name. You can just call this old man Qingmu. Blue Wood altar. Nan Gongzhe looked at the shopkeeper in front of him. No, it should be the old man called Blue Wood now, and he had some thoughts in his mind. In that case, Blue Wood altar master, please take me to see the other 4 altar masters of the 5 element altars. Don't worry, don't worry. Old man Qingmu stretched out his hand and waved it slightly, indicating for Nan Gongzhe not to be so anxious. Although my blood clothing pavilion is a hidden force, there are still all kinds of trivial matters. It will take time to gather all the altar masters scattered all over the ninja world. Just now, this old man has sent a message to the other altar masters. Presumably, they will pay special attention to the appearance of the descendant of the banishment sect. It will take some time for them to arrive here, so it would be better for you to rest for a few days under this old man's arrangement. When all the altar masters come back, this old man will naturally take you to see the other altar masters of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. What Blue Wood said was actually very reasonable. After all, the Blood Cloak Pavilion was considered a large organization. The leaders of these organizations naturally wouldn't stay in such a remote place and wait for the descendant of the banishment sect to come to them. Therefore, Blue Wood's words could be trusted. Sorry, I'm being rude. Since Blue Wood altar master has already made a plan, then I will naturally wait for the other altar masters to come back and discuss many things. It's naturally best that you can understand. After saying that, Blue Wood altar master called the waiter who had just poured wine for Nan Gongzhe and Blue Wood altar master. Go and take Sir Nan Gong to a place to rest. The waiter nodded and went to Nan Gongzhe. He stretched out his hand and said respectfully, "Please come with me." Nan Gongzhe nodded and walked in the direction that the waiter was pointing at. He just took a deep look at Blue Wood altar master and left without saying anything. From the beginning to the end, Nan Gongzhe had never revealed his name. However, Blue Wood altar master directly called out Nan Gongzhe's surname, which was enough to prove that the Blood Cloak Pavilion actually had a certain amount of knowledge about him. Nan Gongzhe had participated in the Third Shinobi World War, and he had never hidden the Tribulation Sword in his hand. With the Tribulation Sword's outstanding appearance, it wasn't difficult for people to remember it. However, whether it was Blue Wood altar master or Blue Wood altar master, neither of them were that enthusiastic about Nan Gongzhe. They knew that Nan Gongzhe had their founder's Tribulation Sword, but they never tried to contact Nan Gongzhe. Looking at Nan Gongzhe's figure leaving, Blue Wood Altar Master sighed meaningfully. He then sat in front of the table, picked up the jade cup with the drunken immortal wine, and slowly drank alone. Sigh. Nangongzhe? It's not that easy to become the head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. I'm old, and I don't have that much ambition. But the rest? It's really hard to say. Chapter 154. Following the waiter, Nangongzhe arrived at a small courtyard not far from the wine shop. The small courtyard wasn't very big. It only had 2 small rooms and a slightly smaller courtyard. Sorry, the conditions here aren't very good. But we have people to clean it up every day, so please stay here for a few days. The waiter said to Nangongzhe embarrassedly. One had to know that Nangongzhe was a ninja. Even the weakest ninja's annual income was enough to cover 10 years of living expenses for an ordinary person. Very few ninjas would worry about money. Of course, ninjas also spent a lot of money. Whether it was herbs used to regulate the body, training, or ninja tools, the cost was still very high. Nangongzhe looked around, shook his head, and said to the waiter, "It's nothing. This place is much better than the place I lived in before I came to Woodleaf. Although it's a small room, isn't it also a good place?" Although this place looked a bit too simple, whether it was the simple structure of the house, the bluestone tiles in the courtyard, or the few trees that weren't very big, the layout was very pleasant. After Nangongzhe came in, he also felt that it was more comfortable than the luxurious Changi Alley courtyard he lived in when he was investigating the Woodleaf. "It's great that you can understand. You must have spent a lot of time here, and your body must be a bit tired. I won't disturb you, have a good rest. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll inform you when the other altar masters come back." As the waiter said this, Nangongzhe also nodded. He signaled the waiter to go do his own things. Seeing the waiter close the courtyard door, Nangongzhe sat on the edge of a small stone table in the courtyard. One of his fingers tapped on the stone table from time to time. It seems that after these years, the Blood Cloth Pavilion has begun to become less pure than when the Banishment Elders first established it. This is very normal, as long as the power of an organization is not bad. After losing their original founder who was strong enough to control everyone in the Asia server, they would inevitably have to face the adjustment and integration of their internal power. To find the best configuration that can allow the organization to continue. The Banishment Elders have left the ninja world for many years. The Blood Cloth Pavilion, as an organization, has not been divided and dissipated until now is already a very good thing. As the pride of the ninja world, the Woodleaf village has only been established for a few decades, but the big and small power struggles have already begun to appear on the surface. If Sandame-sama wasn't such a person, coupled with the fact that the name of the Land of Fire gave Konoha some pressure, coupled with the fact that the shinobi world wars broke out from time to time over the years. Woodleaf, can they survive until now? Moreover, the current Konoha can be said to be under the control of the third Hokage with his own means to suppress a few restless organizations that want to emerge. Once the Sandame dies, Konoha will be in chaos. When the waiter arrived at the wine shop, he reported to the shopkeeper about the arrangement of the Nangongzhe, and was sent away by the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper walked to the depths of the wine shop, a small compartment usually used for rest. He gently turned a vase on the table, and a hidden door opened on the wall beside him with a series of mechanical sounds. He took out a small and delicate token from his pocket and placed it on a small table in the secret room. 4 screens appeared on the wall opposite the small table, which was still in darkness. On the 4 screens, there were different people. "Aoki, you are here?" A person wearing a yellow shirt with a simple and honest face said to Aoki. "Hutu, and everyone must be waiting anxiously, right?" Aoki still looked as amiable as ever as he spoke to the people on the screen. "It's nothing, after all, none of us expected that the successor of the senpai would come to us at this time." A woman wearing a aqua green dress said. She looked about 24 or 25 years old. Bai Shui, what you're saying is wrong. After all, he's the famous Yama of Konoha, the king of Konoha. Once he joins us, it will undoubtedly improve the strength of our organization. Why do you look like you want to cry but have no tears? The person who spoke looked very heroic, and his short hair was mixed with a few strands of golden hair. Humph. If he knows what's good for him and wants to use his name, then so be it. However, if he really intends to interfere in the internal affairs of our Blood Garment Pavilion, then we really have to let him know that strength isn't everything. You still need to know your limits. His fiery red hair seemed to have given him a fiery temper as well. With just a few words, the other altar masters were instantly rendered speechless. They didn't know how to continue the conversation. That's right, the people here were the 5 altar lords of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Well. Bai Shui, Ruijin, Hutu, Akame, don't quarrel over such meaningless words. No matter what, the boy named Nangongja has come here. What we have to discuss is nothing more than the manner in which we are to treat him. Now, if we are not being overly passive, then it is meaningless to keep talking tough. After all, Aoki was the oldest person among them and could be regarded as the senior of the other altar lords, so they had to give him face. However, after they stopped talking, they began to fall into a long silence. Suddenly, a superior appeared above their heads, which was very difficult to deal with. Altar Lord Aoki, I wonder how strong Nangongja is now. After all, it has been 3 years since this person made a move in public, and now he is in a period of rapid growth, so his strength is naturally changing with each passing day. We have to have some understanding of his strength before we can make a judgment based on this information. The altar lord of Bai Shui altar, who was in charge of collecting information, asked Aoki, who was in contact with Nangongja, from the aspect she was in charge of. That's right, Nangongja had been in Woodleaf Village for 3 years, almost in seclusion, at the Ninja Academy. Previously, Danzo had kidnapped Nangongja's family and had a conflict with them within Root's sphere of influence. With Danzo's personality, he would naturally keep it a secret. As for the information of the Blood Cloth Pavilion, in fact, there was only information about Nangongja from 3 years ago. The information in Woodleaf Village was not so easy to obtain. Chapter 155. Nangongja's Strength. When Aoki heard Bai Shui's words, he began to recall the scene of him and Nangongja testing each other in the tavern. To be honest, I'm not sure what level Nangongja's strength is at. I don't think I've reached the peak of his strength yet. 3 years ago, Nangongja was already a jonin of the Woodleaf sect. When he used his full strength, he could even compete with some of the older jonins. The strength of the altar lords is about the same. We're all the stronger jonins. However, everyone's techniques are different, and so are their characteristics. Our Greenwood Altar's internal energy cultivation method is one of the more vigorous internal energy cultivation methods, but the combat strength is not very high. However, when I was testing Nangongja, the 2 of us were only using the most primitive internal energy to fight against each other. Even in the area I'm most proficient in, I don't think I can compete with him. That was because I had already used almost all of my strength, but Nangongja still looked relaxed. I can't see through him. Just as Aoki said, Aoki's combat strength might not be the strongest among the altar lords. However, when it came to internal strength, no one could compete with him. Although internal strength wasn't a direct reflection of one's combat strength, it was an important measure of one's combat strength. Did he achieve a huge breakthrough in strength? Altar Lord Rui Jin's beautiful eyebrows were slightly knitted together. After a moment of silence, Rui Jin made a guess that shocked even himself. Could it be that this young man has already merged his mind, technique, and body into one and broke through his limits to reach the Hotian stage? How many years has it been since someone broke through to the Xiantian stage? Although we're all half-step Xiantian, it's so close yet so far. How could such a young man break through to the Xiantian stage? The deep earth altar lord's square face was slightly distorted due to the shock. It looked a bit funny, but no one mocked Ho Tuesday. Although Roy Jin's guess seemed a bit ridiculous, it was the most reasonable explanation. The legendary innate, in fact, even Nangongzhi didn't know that he had already reached the Xiantian realm that countless internal cultivators dreamed of. Banishment, who had taught Nangongzhi for a long time, didn't pay much attention to the Xiantian realm. He didn't even talk to Nangongzhi about it. Innate? Not bad, not bad. If I have the chance, I must have a good contest with this Nangongzhi and see how powerful this so-called Xiantian is. On the contrary, Scarlet Flame wasn't frightened by the title of innate. Instead, he shouted excitedly. Almost all those who cultivated the Scarlet Flame altar's cultivation method had such a fiery temper and a thirst for battle. I heard that, this Nangongzhi is also a good swordsman. At this moment, Roy Jin had already broken free from the shock of his own conjecture and began to feel a little excited. Among the 5 elements altars, Ho Tu, Roy Jin, and Scarlet Flame were in charge of fighting. Bai Shui was mainly responsible for spying, and Qing Mu was responsible for logistics. Among Ho Tu, Roy Jin, and Scarlet Flame, Ho Tu was responsible for defense, Roy Jin was responsible for charging, and Scarlet Flame was responsible for close combat. So, Roy Jin and Scarlet Flame's thirst for battle was understandable, wasn't it? You too. It's about the same. That person might even become our superior. Yet, you two cowards actually want to have a good fight with him? I don't know what you two are thinking. The only female in the group, Bai Shui, instantly gave Scarlet Flame and Roy Jin 2 cowards status cards. If it was an ordinary person, Roy Jin and Scarlet Flame wouldn't mind letting them see how these 2 cowards could teach them a lesson with their fists. But Bai Shui, who was wearing a light green robe, had a smile on her face at this moment. She clearly looked very beautiful, but through the screen, one could feel a hidden danger hidden in her beauty. The people who were investigating the matter weren't all good people. There were all kinds of cruel methods in the hands of this group of people. Sister Bai Shui, don't scare us. It's our fault, we didn't keep our mouths shut. Unexpectedly, the first one to admit defeat was actually the most powerful Scarlet Flame. This tall man's eyes were filled with fear of the past. Bai Shui. Had Scarlet Flame been traumatized? Roy Jin, who was shouting happily just now, also firmly closed his mouth at this moment. What a joke, to touch Bai Shui's bad luck at this time. Wasn't that just courting death? Roy Jin didn't want to sleep happily in the middle of the night, only to suddenly have a poisonous bug climb onto his bed, or a dagger pressed against his neck. Roy Jin fiercely shook his head, he didn't dare to think. Sister? Bai Shui looked at Scarlet Flame and repeated the way Scarlet Flame called her. In an instant, a chill swept through Scarlet Flame's body. Then, Big Sister? Big Sister? Big Sister? Big Sister? Bai Shui and Scarlet Flame could be considered to be at odds. This. Bai Shui. Scarlet Flame is still a child, you don't need to be so calculative with him. Let's talk business, let's talk business. Old man Qing Mu could be considered to have gone against his conscience. Scarlet Flame, who was probably 2 meters tall when he stood up, was actually called a child by Qing Mu. However, Scarlet Flame still didn't dare to refute, instead bowing his head and smiling. Qing Mu. I'm wondering if we should let this Nangongzhi try to pass the trial that senior banishment left for us altar masters? Ho Tu suddenly said to Qing Mu. That trial? Back then, the banishment didn't block all the altar masters' path to becoming the head. It also left a path for them. As long as they could pass the trial, then they could justifiably become the Blood Garment Pavilion's head. However, the Blood Garment Pavilion had been established for many years, yet no altar master had ever passed the trial and become the head. It seemed to be a path to the head, but an invisible barrier stood in the middle of the path, and no one could pass through it. We can try. If Nangongja passes, then everyone will be happy. Our blood garment pavilion's strength is a level higher, and even if he doesn't pass, we have enough reason to make Nangongja give up. Reconsider. 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 Before Aoki could voice his opinion, the other 4 altar masters had already made their decisions. In that case, let him try. Chapter 156. Nangongja had asked himself countless times what a sword was to him. Senior Banishment had said that a sword was the second body of the wielder. They both possessed essence, energy, and spirit. These essence, energy, and spirit would gradually be nourished by the wielder's strength. In the end, it would form a will. When the wielder could completely merge this weak will with himself, the sword would no longer be a sword. Only the wielder would be left. Senior Banishment was a person with profound attainments in the way of the sword. Naturally, he had his own understanding and judgment of the way of the sword. Nangongja also felt that Senior Banishment was right. After all, this was a path of becoming one with the sword. If he really walked down this path, he could expect to become a legend like Senior Banishment. However, Nangongja always felt that this path was not suitable for him. Compared to Senior Banishment, who had no other desires other than the sword, Nangongja felt that there were too many things in his heart. There were too many things in Nangongja's heart. Nangongja simply couldn't abandon Nangong Ro, Shaoling Air, Zhenbai, these people who were extremely important to him. Nangongja could not accept the heartless path of the sword. When Nangongja was fighting with Danzo, he had a breakthrough. He had seen through himself, but there were still too many things about the sword that he could not see through. A gentle breeze blew in the courtyard, blowing the hair on Nangongja's forehead. It also made Nangongja's head, which was a little swollen, feel slightly refreshed. Nangongja removed the calamity sword from his knees and stood up from his cross-legged position. Oh, a guest is here. After Nangongja had broken through to the Shadow Realm, which was the innate realm that the 5 Elements Altar Master had mentioned, he had become more sensitive to many things. Just like now, the people outside were walking towards the small courtyard where Nangongja lived. Although it was steady and powerful, it still contained traces of the decline of qi and blood. Clearly, he was an old expert. In a place like this, only old man Qingmu could meet this standard. Aoki stood at the door of Nangongja's courtyard and was about to knock on the door. Nangongja, who was standing in the courtyard, waved his hand. His internal energy gushed out and turned into a gentle but powerful wind. It directly opened the courtyard door. This, Elder Qingmu knew that it was Nangongja's doing. When he entered the courtyard, he discovered that Nangongja was still about 30 feet away from the courtyard gate. This kind of inner strength, as well as the wooden door that was not damaged at all. This made old man Qingmu feel that he had been cultivating for most of his life. I thought it was the servant who usually takes care of my daily life who came to inform me that the altar masters have returned. I didn't expect it to be you who came to inform me. Before Aoki said anything, Nangongja already knew the purpose of Aoki's visit. The only thing that could make Aoki come to Nangongja personally was that the altar masters had all returned. Ha ha ha. This makes me feel a little embarrassed. On the way here, I was thinking about how to organize the words to tell you these things, but I didn't expect you to reprimand me. Aoki said to Nangongja with a slight wry smile. It seems that, the remaining altar masters have already thought of a way to make things difficult for me. Otherwise, a sophisticated person like you wouldn't have to organize your words. Nangongja looked at Aoki's bitter face and naturally knew that he must have encountered some obstacles in taking over the position of the chief of the Blood Garment Pavilion. Why don't you wait until I've introduced the other altar masters of our Blood Garment Pavilion to you before I tell you everything? Qingmu clearly didn't want to tell Nangongja about the 5 elemental altar lords' plan under such circumstances. He wanted to bring Nangongja to meet with the other altar lords first so that they could discuss the matter in a more formal manner. Of course. This is related to the selection of the highest leader of the Blood Garment Pavilion. It's only right that I meet the altar masters. Aoki, can you lead the way for me? Nangongja knew that this wasn't a good time to talk about this, so he turned around and picked up the tribulation sword that he had placed beside him. Then, he bowed slightly and signaled Aoki to lead the way. Of course. Please follow me. Aoki smiled and said to Nangongja. The two of them walked one after the other, but they didn't go in the direction of the tavern where they first met Aoki. Instead, they went away from the slightly densely populated town and walked towards the outskirts of a mountain. Slightly shabby, aged bluestone slabs paved a path that led to the top of the mountain. The path was surrounded by towering ancient trees, giving it a serene feeling. A pavilion that wasn't very big was built alone on the top of the mountain. The place where a plaque should have been hung was empty. Instead, after the door was opened, there was a robe hanging in the hall. The robe was made of white silk with dark patterns woven by skillful craftsmen. It was obviously expensive. Unfortunately, most of the robe was stained with blood. As time passed, the blood had turned into a dark red color that was almost black. If one sniffed it carefully, they would be able to smell a faint smell of blood. The Blood Garment Pavilion. So there really was such a robe? Aoki noticed that Nangongja had been looking at the robe hanging in the hall. Naturally, he knew that Nangongja was curious about it. Thus, he explained. This robe is where the name of the Blood Garment Pavilion comes from. This robe was originally white, but it was dyed red by the enemy's blood. Therefore, it has been hanging here and has become the symbol of the Blood Garment Pavilion. Nangongja looked at the robe and felt that the style of the robe was very familiar. He couldn't help but ask. This robe is Senior Banishments? Aoki nodded, obviously agreeing with Nangongja's guess. The people in the Blood Garment Pavilion are all descendants of clans that cultivate internal strength. However, the cultivation method of internal strength had declined in that era, and there were very few people who were particularly powerful. Many people targeted clans like us, which seemed to be rich, and wanted to annex us. However, our senior would rather die than submit. He had been fighting with those forces who wanted to annex us. However, his strength was still not comparable to those clans who wanted to annex us. He was almost at the end of his rope. At that moment, Senior Banishment made a move and saved the remaining forces. The white robe on his body was dyed red just like that. After driving away the enemy, Senior Banishment even helped us improve our cultivation method and formed the inheritance method of the 5 Elements altar. In order to express our gratitude for Senior Lija's kindness, we used this blood-red robe as our symbol. We established the Blood Garment Pavilion to guard Senior Banishment. Chapter 157. Senior Qingmu is right. This is the Blood Garment Pavilion's earliest stance. We were originally a group of pitiful people who were saved by our banishment seniors. We formed the Blood Garment Pavilion to repay their kindness. As soon as Qingmu finished speaking, several figures walked out from behind the screen in the hall. The one who spoke was an honest-looking man in a khaki robe. He was Ho-Tu, the altar lord of the 5 Elements altar and the Deep Earth altar. Ah! He's altar lord of the 5 Elements altar and the Deep Earth altar. Hearing Ho-Tu's words, Qingmu introduced Nangongja. Greetings, altar lord of the Deep Earth altar. Nangongja greeted Ho-Tu politely. Ho-Tu bowed to show his respect for Nangongja. These are the other altar lords of the 5 Elements altar. There's no need to introduce altar lord of the Deep Earth altar. The red-haired man is the altar lord of the Scarlet Flame altar of the Blood Garment Pavilion. The woman in the green robe is the altar lord of the Clear Water altar of the Blood Garment Pavilion. The one with black hair mixed with blonde hair is the altar lord of the Pristine Gold altar of the Blood Garment Pavilion. Qing Mu introduced the people standing in front of Nangongzhe to Nangongzhe. Rui Jin and Bai Shui were fine. They bowed to Nangongzhe and greeted Nangongzhe. However, Qi Yan seemed to be in a bad mood. He glanced at Nangongzhe and did nothing else. This altar master has quite the temper. Very good, Nangongzhe looked at Qi Yan and smiled. This guy's brain is stupid. He doesn't understand the ways of the world at all. Little brother, please don't take it to heart and forgive this coward. Bai Shui came out and said to Nangongzhe. It could be said that she was trying to explain Scarlet Flame's attitude. Sister Bai Shui. Scarlet Flame seemed to want to say something, but when Bai Shui glared at him, he swallowed his words. However, he still glared at Nangongzhe fiercely. That's only natural. I'm not someone who's so calculative. Everyone has different temperaments and personalities, and right now, Brother Scarlet Flame and I still don't understand each other that well. It's understandable that he's not so cordial. Nangongzhe smiled elegantly, looking very gentlemanly. On the contrary, Scarlet Flame looked more like a child throwing a tantrum. Bai Shui looked deeply at Nangongzhe and couldn't help but raise his evaluation of Nangongzhe. These people were very clear about Scarlet Flame's temper, but none of them warned Scarlet Flame when they came out to meet Nangongzhe. Instead, he waited until Scarlet Flame started to throw a tantrum before coming out to help him. In fact, they also wanted to have a good understanding of Nangongzhe's temperament. Most of the information they collected was about combat strength. This kind of information on how to deal with people had to be tested by himself to be able to get a clear picture of it. Nangongzhe's performance naturally made them feel very appreciative. To become the leader of an organization, it's not as simple as having strength. Dealing with people is also an important factor. As a person who has been famous in the ninja world for a long time, Nangongzhe didn't have the slightest arrogance. Instead, he was very approachable. Even when Scarlet Flame treated him with such a disrespectful attitude, he didn't show any negative emotions. The words he said to Scarlet Flame before, in fact, could be regarded as half a beating and half a teasing. Nangongzhe-sama, I am also a swordsman. Naturally, I also know a little about the character of people like us, so I have something to say. Rui Jin took a step forward, and Nangongzhe also saw the long sword on Rui Jin's back. There are very few people who use swords in the ninja world, and now that Nangongzhe saw such a person, he naturally had a good impression of him. That's natural, fighting and scheming is really boring. I believe that Your Excellency already knows that our Blood Garment Pavilion has been developing for a very long time without a chief. Suddenly, because of the sword of the Banishment Senpai, a leader suddenly appeared on top of everyone's head, which really makes a lot of people feel unfair. After some discussion, we feel that Sir Nangongzhe still needs to pass a test to become the head. Only then can you become the head of our Blood Garment Pavilion legitimately. Rui Jin's words were very straightforward, just like a sword, straight and not curved. But Nangongzhe didn't have a bad feeling in his heart. This was very good. He clearly put the problem and then said his own conditions. This kind of style of doing things, although it's not very skillful. But it's also very difficult to dislike. Of course I understand what you're talking about. After all, the most important thing for an organization is its internal stability and unity. If you don't care about letting me become the leader of the Blood Cloth Pavilion, whether it's my heart or the people who belong to the Blood Cloth Pavilion, it will be unfair. You can seriously want to solve this problem, and you have already come up with a solution. In fact, you have done enough. If you tell me the content of the trial, I am also willing to try your trial. Originally, Aoki and Ho-Tu were worried that Nangongzhe would suddenly become violent and fall out with several people, but at this moment, they also nodded slightly at this moment. Having such a leader was not a bad thing. Sure enough. I still like people who practice swords like me. Rui Jin also smiled. The trial you want to go through is called the Dragonization Path. It was set up by senior banishment so that after he passed away, a more talented person could become the leader of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Both the ordinary members of the Blood Cloth Pavilion and the 5 elemental altar masters can go through it. As long as you can pass the trial, you will be the rightful leader of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Even if you don't pass, you will gain a lot from it. It will be of great benefit to your future growth. The Dragonization Path. Nangongzhe could not help but think of a legend that senior banishment had once told him. The divine dragon that flew high in the sky was actually a carp that crossed the barrier of the Dragon's Gate. The so-called Dragonization Path seemed to be similar to this legend. In that case, I will naturally give it a try. When I received the Heavenly Calamity Sword from senior banishment, coming to the Blood Cloth Pavilion seems to have become a part of my responsibility. In fact, I feel very good that I have not been rejected by all of you. The Dragonization Path is right in front of me. If I don't try it, won't I be letting down senior banishment's kindness in teaching me? Nangongzhe's words caused the other altar masters to look at each other. How many years had it been since senior banishment had passed away? Kindness in teaching him? Receiving the Heavenly Calamity Sword? It was really puzzling, but since Nangongzhe had agreed to this proposal, they did not bother to discuss it further. The few of them did not dwell too much on this issue. After all, the path of dragonization was not so easy to traverse. Otherwise, how could the Blood Cloth Pavilion not have a leader for so many years? Chapter 158. Thank you for your understanding. We're ready to start the Dragonization Path. As long as you're ready, you can enter the Dragonization Path at any time. Qingmu said to Nangongzhe. I don't need any more time to prepare. I've been staying here all this time to recuperate my essence, energy, and spirit. Since you've already prepared everything about the Dragonization Path, let's not waste too much time. Let's go straight to the Dragonization Path. Nangongzhe knew that these altar masters definitely didn't gather here today. Since they've already prepared the Dragonization Path, he could just go straight in. Well, let me take you to the Dragonization Path. Ruijin walked to Nangongzhe's side and said to Nangongzhe. Thank you. Nangongzhe was quite polite to Ruijin. I hope you won't try too hard when you're on the Dragonization Path. There are very few people who practice the way of the sword in this world, and people with your strength are even more rare. I'm still looking forward to the day when I can have a long talk with you and comprehend the way of the sword together. In fact, Ruijin's words were very proud. Although the Dragonization Path was indeed very beneficial to practitioners, there must be dangers that couldn't be ignored at the same time. Hadn't opportunity and danger always been a pair of close sisters? Of course. I'm also looking forward to discussing the way of the sword with you, Ruijin. Nangongzhe didn't say anything about the dangers. He just talked about discussing the way of the sword with Ruijin. There was great confidence in his eyes. When the altar masters saw this, they couldn't help but shake their heads. The Dragonization Path. It wasn't something that could be passed just because one was strong. I wish you good luck in martial arts. Although the altar masters had a lot of doubts about Nangongzhe's ability to pass the Dragonization Path, they still followed the usual etiquette and sent their blessings to everyone who was going to pass the Dragonization Path. Please. Ruijin stretched out his hand and motioned for Nangongzhe to walk with him. Then, he walked into the interior of the loft first. Ho Tu, Qiyan, Bai Shui, and Qingmu followed behind Nangongzhe and walked towards the depths of the pavilion. Arriving at a wall painting with 9 dragons flying in the sky, Ruijin took out a pearl that was emitting a lustrous luster from his bosom. With a slight leap, he embedded the pearl in his hand into the mouth of the 5-clawed golden dragon that flew the highest and also the largest among the 9 dragons. Only a dragon with a dragon's pearl in its mouth was a true dragon. For a moment, the entire 9 dragons painted wall seemed to have been activated. The 9 divine dragons, which were originally just ordinary relief sculptures, seemed to have been given life at this moment. It actually began to move. The white clouds and divine dragons on the wall had already come to life. Nangongzhi could faintly hear the sound of thunder coming from the wall. A huge majestic aura was also emitted from the wall. It was as if the dragon swimming in it was a real dragon soaring in the 9 heavens. The aura was unparalleled. After all, the altar lords and Nangongzhi were very powerful internal energy cultivators. Although the aura was terrifying, they could still withstand it. The endless aura came in waves, passing through the bodies of the altar lords and Nangongzhi. An indescribable feeling of relaxation appeared in Nangongzhi's heart. The aura emitted from the wall painting was purifying the internal energy in Nangongzhi's body little by little. Looking at the altar lord standing next to him, he saw that they also had a comfortable expression on their faces. It was obvious that the aura from the wall painting was also purifying the impurities in their internal energy. This is the first stage of the dragonization path, the aura descending. It is used to test the basic strength of those who have been lost. Those who are not strong enough will be eliminated here. Of course, if you can endure it, there will naturally be benefits. This is the opportunity to purify the impurities in your internal energy. Ruijin explained to Nangongzhi. The trial had already begun here. Time passed by slowly. The aura emitted from the wall painting also began to weaken. Looking at the original 9 dragons flying in the sky painting, it had now changed its appearance. Among the dragons, there were 8 slightly smaller dragons that had their heads facing each other, forming the shape of a door arch. The largest 5-clawed golden dragon with a dragon ball in its mouth was entrenched in the door arch. It looked like a slightly twisted path. Was this the dragonization path that the altar lords were talking about? Please, please, please. The altar masters all stretched out their hands, forming a palm shape and facing the path paved by the golden 5-clawed divine dragon that appeared in the 9 dragons painted wall. Nangongzhi cupped his hands and pressed his hand on the 9 dragon wall painting. A wave of ripples surged. Nangongzhi's hand entered the wall painting without any obstruction. I don't know if he can really pass this dragonization path. Looking at Nangongzhi's figure that had completely disappeared in front of the wall painting, Aoki whispered such a sentence. He didn't know if he was asking himself or someone else. Well, since Nangongzhi has entered the wall painting, let's wait here quietly. In that case, all we have to do is wait here quietly. If he can pass, then there is nothing wrong with letting him become the head of our blood garment pavilion. The altar lords were all people who had experienced the dragonization path. Everyone was clear about the dangers. Passing the dragonization path was a great test of a person's strength, potential, and luck. If Nangongzhi can really pass the dragonization path, then it's not incomprehensible to let such a person become the head of the blood cloth pavilion. Maybe, in the hands of Nangongzhi, the blood cloth pavilion can once again prosper and become another powerful force in the ninja world. Not everyone could peacefully be a member of a hidden force for the rest of their lives. Although they have powerful strength, they can only walk in the dark. This kind of life is not tolerable for everyone. Heaven's retribution sword. Banishment. Nangongzhi. It seems that it's time for the blood cloth pavilion to go to the ninja world. After all, Aoki was old, and he thought a little more than the young people. Nangongzhi was like a spark that ignited a fuse. Whether Nangongzhi can pass the dragonization path or not, Nangongzhi, who represented the ninja world, has already ignited the ambition of many people to enter the world. As long as the timing is right, a single spark will inevitably become a prairie fire. The comeback of the blood cloth pavilion is already an unstoppable thing. Chapter 159. Putting aside the thoughts of the altar masters outside of the painting, Nangongzhi was already shocked by everything in front of him to the point that he was in a trance. The wall painting in the attic of the blood clothing pavilion was very large. It was already 8 to 9 meters tall. The divine dragons depicted on it were also extremely imposing. It was enough to show the meticulous thoughts of the creator. However, even such a majestic 9-dragon wall painting could not compare to what Nan Gongzhi was seeing at this moment. Just like what he saw in the wall painting, Nan Gongzhi was standing on a path formed by a golden dragon crouching on the ground. The 8 dragons were facing each other, forming the arch of a door. However, the 9 divine dragons here were so huge. He looked at his feet. Just a scale on the golden dragon was about the same size as Nan Gongzhi's body. Most of the 8 divine dragons that formed the arch of a door were already hidden in the clouds. Only their huge dragon heads were displayed in front of Nan Gongzhi. Nan Gongzhi did not know if it was an illusion or something else, but Nan Gongzhi felt that the 8 divine dragons were staring at him. It made Nan Gongzhi feel uneasy for no reason. However, a cold feeling came from Nan Gongzhi's hand and directly went to Nan Gongzhi's brain. This caused Nan Gongzhi's slightly flustered expression to ease a little. Heaven's Calamity Sword. Nan Gongzhi raised his hand and looked at the Heaven's Calamity Sword in his hand. He murmured softly. I didn't expect this. I thought I was an experienced and knowledgeable person. However, looking at such a huge divine dragon in front of me, my mind was still taken away. I actually became a little scared. Fear was an instinct of every human. Perhaps some people were extremely calm, as if they would not change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them. But that was only because they hadn't reached the bottom line of their fear. When fear really struck, how many people could really calm down? Nan Gongzhi didn't know, but Nan Gongzhi at least knew that he wasn't that heartless and fearless. Then, why don't you let me try this so-called dragonization path? Just like that, Nan Gongzhi stepped forward and walked towards the path in front of him. Although the distance was far, it was nothing to Nan Gongzhi. It didn't take long for Nan Gongzhi to reach the first door arch that was formed by 2 green dragons. It was only when they arrived that they discovered that there was a transparent barrier above the arch formed by 2 azure dragons, preventing them from moving forward. The state of the thin film was very similar to the ripples on the wall that pulled Nan Gongzhi into this space when he entered the path of dragonization. Is this also a spatial jump ripple? Nan Gongzhi knew that this was the first test that he had to face. Since I'm already in front of it, let's go in. With one step, Nan Gongzhi had already entered the thin film of the azure dragon arch. An irresistible dizziness hit him. Although Nan Gongzhi tried his best to stay awake, he still fell into a deep sleep. Nan Gongzhi's body was like a branch drifting in the river. Under the guidance of an unknown force, Nan Gongzhi's body was slowly sinking. Ouch, bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground and a cry of pain sounded at the same time. A huge cloud of dust rose from the grass-covered ground. It was Nan Gongzhi who had entered the first azure dragon arch. At this moment, his body was covered in dust. His black hair was also mixed with 2 strands of green grass. This trial. Can't it give people a reminder? When I entered the wall, nothing happened at all. But after entering the first arch, I was forced to fall asleep. It wasn't gentle at all. It just threw me to the ground. Should I say that this is indeed a trial created by senior banishment? Nan Gongzhi touched the bump on his head. He complained while tidying up his clothes. He also took the opportunity to remove a few strands of grass from his head. Thinking about the days he went through under senior banishment, Nan Gongzhi felt that this strength was definitely created by senior banishment. By the way, where is this? After complaining about senior banishment, Nan Gongzhi realized that he should properly investigate his surroundings. Seeing that there was a relatively tall tree beside him, Nan Gongzhi didn't say anything else and raised his inner force. He was prepared to climb up the tree to see what kind of place this trial was. After a short run-up, Nan Gongzhi had already run towards the trunk of the tree. If everything was normal, then Nangongja should be like those ninjas who learned how to attach chakra to their feet. He should climb up the tree steadily, and then look down from the top of the tree to see where he was. But things didn't go as planned. Nangongja just walked a few steps on the trunk, and he fell from the trunk. What's going on? Nangongja could clearly feel the majestic internal force in his body, but why couldn't he simply climb to the top of the tree like usual? Welcome. Trial taker, a slightly ethereal voice suddenly reverberated throughout the entire space. This voice, no matter how he looked at it, it sounded like the banishment senior who had tormented him a lot. I think, you've already noticed. Although your strength hasn't disappeared, you can't use it at all, right? This is the Azure Dragon Gate's trial. You will lose the internal force that you rely on to survive. You can only rely on your body and the martial arts that you've bitterly trained to pass this trial. Look in front of you. Nangongja followed the voice and looked at the dense forest in front of him. In the sky, as soon as the banishment senior's voice fell, the dense forest seemed to come alive, and its tall body moved on its own. A path appeared in front of Nangongja. Pass through this path and obtain the Azure Dragon token at the end of the path. You will pass this Azure Dragon Gate. Young man. Don't be afraid of injury, don't be afraid of failure. Let's just keep going forward. Let your courage become your strongest strength. Let your little universe, let your soul burn. So, you just wanted to say, little universe? What is this? Even the power system is different. It's even weirder than letting someone who cultivates internal force appear in the ninja world who cultivates chakra. You'll be said to be messing around, banishment senior. Chapter 160. To be honest, looking at everything in front of him, Nangongja did not feel that he was in an illusory space used for training. The trees in front of him had a sense of vicissitudes of life on their surface. In the depths of the forest, the sound of insects and birds could be heard from time to time. Nangongja even saw rabbits, squirrels, and other animals quickly shuttling through the forest. The most unusual thing was probably the source of the light, right? The sun could not be seen in the sky, but the light still carried a gentle temperature from a direction. It passed through the gaps in the canopy, leaving mottled shadows on the ground. If possible, Nangongja simply wanted to have a good afternoon nap and enjoy the environment here. However, Nangongja could not do what he wanted to do as he pleased. The path of dragonization was an important part of his future development. Nangongja had to force himself to be alert and pass through the forest path that looked very ordinary, but was said to be the key to this level. This is really annoying. I hate these troublesome things the most. But for my sister, for Mashiro, for little Linger, I still have to continue. Nangongja shook his head and threw out some negative thoughts from his mind. There was no other way. This was something that he should do the most at this moment. Since he had to do it, he had to do it in his best state. Otherwise, not only would he be letting himself down, he would also be letting down the teachings of the banishment senior who was both a teacher and a friend. Nangongja slowly pulled out the Heaven's Calamity sword from the scabbard in his hand. The quieter and more peaceful a place was, the easier it was to hide unpredictable dangers, right? Sha, Nangongja's shoes lightly stepped on the slightly soft soil on the forest path. The sound of shoes stepping on the soil clearly appeared in Nangongja's ears. Ha! Nangongja suddenly turned around. Although the Heaven's Calamity sword in his hand had lost the support of his internal energy, with Nangongja's strength and the speed of the sword, the sound of air being cut was still heard. Dong, at the same time, the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard. Nangongja just now felt that there was movement behind him, so he attacked with his sword. The thing that was directly cut in half by Nangongja's sword was not a human. It was a kind of tree with a human shape. This was the so-called treant, right? From time to time, some green juice from the trent's treant. What is this thing? Tray ants have the ability to move? Nan Gongzhe looked at the tray ant on the ground and felt that it was very fresh. But before Nan Gongzhe could figure out what this tray ant was, he heard an old voice echoing in the forest. You're a tray ant. Nan Gongzhe heard an old voice echoing in the forest. Bold human. You dare to break into the Trent's territory and even kill one of our members. Your crime is unforgivable. You will die to atone for your sins. Nan Gongzhe did not know who was talking, but the name, Tray Ant, drilled into Nan Gongzhe's ears. Tray Ant, is it a kind of creature? Nan Gongzhe murmured slightly, but there was a trace of a smile on the corner of his mouth. It seems that the key for me to pass this level is these so-called Tray Ants. Very good. Since they are alive, it means that they can also die and be injured. A creature that can be injured or killed is not a serious threat. In fact, Nan Gongzhe initially thought that these Tray Ants were a new type of puppet. After all, Nan Gongzhe fought against the sand ninjas before. A puppet master who hides himself is really annoying. Since these Tray Ants are a kind of creature, it really saves a lot of trouble. I don't know who you are. My only purpose here is to take away a token. As long as you give me the token, we will naturally not offend you. But if you don't cooperate, then I don't mind having a good fight with you. Nan Gongzhe knew that the key to passing this level was actually to find the Azure Dragon token mentioned in the voice of the Banishment Senior. If it could save him some trouble, Nan Gongzhe was actually very happy. But even if Nan Gongzhe wanted to avoid trouble, the old Tray Ant seemed to be angered by Nan Gongzhe. Human. If you can talk to us properly and complete some tasks we give you, we will naturally give you the Azure Dragon token. But you killed one of our people, and now you have such an unrepentant look. How can we give you the Azure Dragon token? Can I get the Azure Dragon token by completing the Trent's tasks? Seems like this is also a way to complete this level. But whether it was the voice of the Banishment Senior in the sky or the Altar Masters who sent him here, they did not mention this at all. Instead, the voice of the Banishment Senior in the sky seemed to be deliberately guiding Nan Gongzhe to go against the Tray Ants. This is really troublesome. So there is actually such a convenient way? But it doesn't matter, I have been holding back a lot of resentment during this period. Whether it is being schemed against by the Three Generations and Danzo, or Mashiro's situation, they all make me feel uneasy. A good fight is not a bad thing. Nan Gongzhe's mood was indeed not very good recently, and he needed to vent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have slashed the Tray Ant that appeared behind him in half without any explanation. Ha ha ha. Very good, human, it seems like you have no intention of repenting at all. Then be prepared to welcome the anger of our Tray Ant clan. The old voice seemed to have been angered by Nan Gongzhe to the point of laughing. His voice clearly contained a monstrous fury. I have been crowned with the name Yama by the people of the shinobi world, so naturally, I am not an indecisive and kind Virgin Mary. I can tolerate those who I care about, but people like you, why should I restrain my temper? You have threatened me again and again, and even contemptuously called me a human. Then I'll let you have a good look at what kind of Azura techniques the humans you speak of have. Nan Gongzhe chuckled, and the sword light reflected on Nan Gongzhe's face. If people who are familiar with Nan Gongzhe came here, they will definitely find that Nan Gongzhe's state at the moment is very abnormal. When Nan Gongzhe stood in front of the wall, he still had a humble and polite appearance, but just after entering the first trial space, Nan Gongzhe's mood has become so hostile. Everything is revealing a strange feeling. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.